Gilmanton Joint School Board to order. Could I get a certificate of posting?
Yes, the meeting was posted online on the school district website as well as in the schools.
Next, I'd ask everyone to stand for the pledge. Flags over there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up is the approval of minutes from our last joint meeting with the Gilmanton School Board on October 5th.
I'll motion to approve the joint meeting from October 5th of 2020.
I'll second.
Seconded by Adam. Any discussion? All in favor? Signify by raising your hand so I can see. It looks like it's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is the first of two public comments. If you'd like to speak, please state your name, approach one of the microphones, please state your name and address. This agenda item is intended to give Gilmanton and Gilford citizens a voice and the Gilford School District an opportunity to hear from you all directly. Please note this time's not intended for question and answer. Questions about programs and otherwise can be directed to respective administrators during the day. But please approach the microphone if you have a comment.
Good evening, school board members. My name is Dr. David Stang. Before I get started, I'd like to ask, why is our flag in the corner, in the shadows, when people cannot even see it? I think it's unconscionable that the symbol of our country, a beacon of freedom throughout the world, is in the corner, in the shadows where it cannot be seen. I hope that you change that in future meetings. My name is Dr. David Stang. I live on Cop Road in Gilmanton. I'm a 1986 graduate of Dartmouth Medical School. I've been practicing medicine for 32 years. I've chaired numerous state boards and committees, often serving as the chair in the process. I'm here to tell you today that masks do not work to stop the transmission of COVID or any other virus for that matter. There is no study that shows that that is the case. When I was a resident, we were rounding on an inpatient who had been admitted to the hospital with tuberculosis. And before we went into that room, which was exhausted to the outside, much like a room housing a COVID patient would, had ultraviolet lights on the wall to kill any germs floating in the air. Before we went in, being dutiful residents, we started putting our face masks on, exactly the same types of masks that you are wearing today. And the attending physician, the pulmonologist, looked at us with derision and said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "Putting our masks on." And he said, "Why?" And we said, "So we don't get tuberculosis." He said, "Are you kidding me? Do you think that that mask, that little mask, is going to stop you from getting tuberculosis? If it's floating around the room, this thing is not duct taped to your face. You are not hermetically sealed against the environment. It's going to go right around the corner of your mask into your mouth, and you're going to get TB. If you want to use a mask to stop from getting TB, put the mask on the patient. In other words, quarantine the sick, not the well." There is no study that today shows that you will stop the transmission of COVID or any other virus with a mask. Please consider that when you adopt your policies. And finally, please stop using the horrendous term social distancing. There is nothing social about keeping human beings apart. If you must use something, please use the term physical distancing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jade Wood, Chestnut Drive, Gilford. Here I have a petition demanding an end to masking in Gilford in schools. to SAU 73 School Board. Whereas I, the undersigned, understand that multiple research reports dating back to June 2020 have demonstrated that children are not affected statistically by COVID-19. They rarely contract the disease, rarely get severely ill if they do, and rarely pass the disease to others. Whereas I believe that requiring our children to wear face coverings all day in the classroom has negative health effects on children, including decreased oxygen intake, decreased carbon dioxide elimination, and increased introduction of viruses and bacteria into the lungs, in addition to severe negative social, mental trauma that may affect our children for decades. And whereas I understand that decades of peer-reviewed science demonstrates that masks don't work and have never worked to prevent the spread of respiratory virus. And finally, I understand that other countries and states who did not close schools and force masking upon children have had no worse outcomes by any measurable statistics than areas that forced draconian health measures. And therefore, I, undersigned, and I will produce multiple copies of this as we already have, since going live for just 24 hours, over 120 signers. I, Jade Wood, demand for my children and yours, the SAU 73 School Board end the anti-science child masking policies in all Gilford facilities. And I have a copy for each of you, and I'll be providing more signed copies tomorrow at the office.
Thank you. Thank you for those.
All right, how do we lower this one? You're too tall for me. Oh, okay. Good evening. My name is Kristin Marshall, 26 Knollwood Drive. First, I would like to congratulate and thank the school board, superintendent, principals, teacher, and staff for all that you have done this year to keep our children in school full-time and the countless hours that you all put in to contact tracing, phone calls, emails, and safety measures. We are an anomaly in our small town of Gilford, and we have proved there is a way to give the children of this district what they deserve: full in-time learning in a school environment with their friends and teachers. It is time now, though, to push once more to unmask our children in schools. As we have seen, the cases and hospitalizations are at an all-time low. Every person over 12 years old has been given the opportunity to be vaccinated. Nearly every other establishment has dropped the mask mandate, including restaurants, bars, box stores, libraries, and supermarkets. Our children can go anywhere they wish without a mask, yet they still have to wear them in school. What common sense does that make? What are we doing to these children? And more importantly, what are we waiting for? What other box has to be checked to finally say no more masks in school? We have abided by the mask mandate for over a year now, and our freedom of choice is being impeded on. We as parents have the right to decide what is best for our own children. Please give us back the power as parents to decide. We are doing a real disservice to our children. We are covering their noses and mouths where they breathe. We are making them fearful of a virus that has never affected children the way it does adults. The weather last week and these last few days have been brutally hot, and there is no air conditioning in the Gilford Elementary School, yet we continue to make the children suffer. I personally have called my daughter out of school 3 times now for her safety in these extreme temperatures. Please consider dropping the mask mandate tonight and putting the decision back in the hands of the parents where it belongs. Let's go out on a high note here, Gilford, and prove again that we are leaders and we are proactive in protecting our freedoms as well as our children. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Matthew Wood from 193 Chestnut Drive in Gilford. I don't have a lot prepared, but I have a severely asthmatic daughter, and to the point where, for everyone to understand, to do the Gilford Gauntlet this past week, she had to have someone run with her just to be sure. So it's a pretty severe case. And I know you get the option to have the children at home, but let's be honest, we went through everything we did from March to June last year, and it didn't work for our children. It didn't work for several parents. So we chose to go along with the mask because that was the best for her education. But now over time, we have learned a lot more about the virus in the masks, and to what the last person had said, we can go anywhere we want. I haven't worn, I think I want to put on 5 minutes to go to the vet. In the last 3 weeks, I've had no reason to wear a mask. I've gone out, no one's made me wear a mask. I haven't got COVID. Not that I'm in at risk age group, but nor is my child. So now with the temperature being 90 degrees, I mean, it's above 90 degrees, we now have to decide, are we going to send our children to school and make them suffer? I mean, I will wear a mask for a half hour, and then I start touching it. At that point, I think, so I know little kids are touching their masks throughout the day. It's uncomfortable. And then add the heat to it, that's just absurd. So they're touching it. So if it's for the safety protocol of we're trying to keep the virus away from the children, well, then they're touching their mask. And we have them playing sports inside. They're going through gym. My daughter was going to do a camp this week here in the high school, but she had to wear a mask inside. And this is just getting to the point where, when do we stop and use common sense? I think a lot of us, not everyone's wearing a mask that's through here. We go everywhere and we see each other without masks. And for the school to not be on board with that, to me, it just doesn't seem, 1 and 2 doesn't add up. I think we use common sense and we think about it. There's no real reason to keep wearing masks. So I'm asking that you guys remove the mask mandate. Manchester did today, for those that aren't aware. Manchester removed the mask mandate. And I just think it's the logical thing to do at this point. We're past all this, we're moving forward. So that's all I have to say, but I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Skip Shea, because that's what Superintendent Beitler called me in response to my right to know request. So today I am Mr. Shea. I had asked a question of the board when I sent in my last right to know, which I'm going to answer for you because nobody asked me back. This has to do with an incident that happened a couple of years ago during my last year on the budget committee. And we were doing the administrative subcommittee, myself and Chan Eddy, who was the liaison from the selectmen. And Steve Tucker, at the time, the curriculum director, was proposing a new 5th grade math program. And I immediately started to say, well, how are you going to know which program is better, the current one or this new one? How are you going to set up your experimental group versus your control group? What are the metrics for the current program against which you will be measuring? And what are you going to set up for metrics for the new one so that you will know which one is better? Mr. Tucker at the time had no answer whatsoever. He looked rather flustered, rather surprised at what Chan and I, being engineers, are quite used to this kind of talk. He said nothing. And then finally, Superintendent Beitler said, and this really astonished me, and I just couldn't believe it. He said, we will know that the new math program for the 5th grade will be a success because in 7 years, we will have higher graduation rates. I was literally gobsmacked at that a superintendent earning the salary and benefits that he is right now would put out such a lackluster and rather oafish response to what I thought was a rather valid question. Since this is not the public time for questions, I will withhold my questions till the second one. Would I be able to ask questions at that point?
Public comment is just that, not for Q&A.
So you are returning back to the years ago policy of the school board by which people like I who do not have kids in the school have no recourse to my elected representatives in order to seek redress. Is that true? Because I can't go to a teacher, I can't go to a vice principal or a principal, assistant superintendent or a superintendent. You folks are my only source of seeking redress, and now you've just said I can't.
I think you've followed the direct policies by filing some right to know requests recently. And I'm confident that we've been responsive to those right to know requests.
No, the superintendent has done nothing. He sent me, I asked specific questions. He sent me 2 documents, of which none of them, of the 90-odd pages plus, answered a single one of my questions. This is worthless. So where do I go? I even asked you, is this the workmanship that the school board wishes to be known for? And I didn't get a response from any of you. So I am stuck here standing with no way of getting answers to my questions because you're shuffling that responsibility off to the superintendent and he's just blowing me off, which is not the first time. Thank you.
Thank you for your input.
I bet you.
Any other comments?
If I may, Gretchen, real quick, I'm curious too. So this isn't a Q&A. Like he's saying, when does the public have the opportunity to come to their elected officials as a board, right? Not as an individual. If it's not this meeting, then when is it?
My understanding is the questions that were received, we provide the information that is provided, that has been asked. And this is the only example that and since my time on the board, this is the only example where I've been, as a board, I've heard us accused of not being responsive to questions and answers. And I did ask for a tally of time spent on these right to know requests to be started. And I'm confident that we're being responsive to them, that we're following and providing what is asked. And so far, I think I've been told that we've spent at least 20 hours of manpower, including going through right now, I think over 250,000 emails.
Then you're doing it wrong. You should have no more than a 2 to 3% hit rate.
I don't want to get too far off course here. I'm trying to drive down.
May I just interject one moment here? I was at the school board meeting when the board decided to choose the New Hampshire School Board Association policy that codified that public comment was only supposed to be comment, that there would be no back and forth. This was several years ago. It's recorded and it's up on YouTube. And I was astonished that elected representatives decided to segregate themselves from the public. So as Mr. Sanborn is saying, those of us who are not in the school system, but we are taxpayers, we have no redress. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so again, just to finish, I feel, I don't want to be here any later than anybody else does, right? I know sometimes public sections can really go on for hours, right? We've been here till midnight before. And I'm not saying we got to get into, drill down into the nitty gritty details, but some sort of question, and maybe outside of, I'm hearing a little feedback, just in general, it's put out to the public that it's not a Q&A. So a lot of people don't feel like they can come here with questions, general questions that they want to ask their elected representatives. So I don't see it as a problem if, again, we're not going to get it, if it's going to turn into a back and forth where it's going to take too much time, then we can follow up and maybe set up a meeting. But for somebody in the public, they should have complete access to be able to come and ask any questions of us. And that's where I'm at. So sounds like, Nin, you got something to...
So the thing that you have to remember though, Kyle, is that there's 5 of us up here and you're answering for all of us together. So we have our email addresses out there so that way those can be sent to us. We do sometimes direct, especially if it's an administration thing, for an administrator to answer those questions. we can easily have a meeting to go over every single question that's being asked of us. But you do have to remember that, yes, they can ask you a question off to the side, or this is truly not intended for the questions and answers to answer those things, because we do sometimes have to do the research that goes along with it. And one person answering is answering for the entire board.
100% agree that one person shouldn't answer for the entire board. And I'm not saying that if we're proposed a question that obviously, okay, I need to go research this question. We need to be able to gather the data and figure out what our response is going to be. But I think just to say to the general public that, hey, this isn't a Q&A, I think sends the wrong message. And I think we should be saying, hey, listen, if you have questions, bring them to the school board meeting. You may not get them answered tonight, but at least feel comfortable enough to come and have access to us, because really outside of this meeting, yeah, we individually can, but this is the time when we are the board, when we are as one, and not that we're going to give off individual answers to somebody, but at least it's the redress. It's the ability for them to have access to it. So again, I'm not trying to say that this should turn into, you know, answering every little detailed question that anybody off the street wants to ask, but I do think it should be something that we at least make ourselves available to. That's really all I'm saying. So. And
the point I was making is, in my 5 years now on the board, this is the first time I've been accused of not getting questions answered. So
yeah, and I'll follow up, and I'll agree that it's, you know, you go past maybe the 5-6 years, the previous board, and, you know, not throwing out names, but there was a sense that you could not approach the board, and there were meetings that I was present at that people were shouted down and basically told to go away. And I agree, this board, I haven't seen it in my short tenure here. It seems like we have definitely allowed people to come up and speak for as much as they want, really. I mean, we really haven't put any time limits on anybody. And I just want to make sure that we're all kind of on the same page on that technically, okay, maybe it's not, you know, a Q&A where we're going to give you your answer that night, but certainly, you know, don't feel like you can't come to us and ask these questions. So I just wanted to kind of clarify that, that's all.
Any other comments? Thanks, Kyle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Tyler. I live at 34 Silver Street. Just to make a quick comment on what you guys were just talking about, I think it is a valid point that some of us don't know whether it's worth coming to a school board meeting and whether or not we will get any feedback at some time. I know I have sent emails in the past and I have gotten some responses, and I've always been encouraged to come here and comment. But then it's always with what's going to come out of that comment, like, or question. And maybe in addition to doing meetings for, or minutes for the meeting itself, maybe also like an addendum that kind of goes through any questions that you received through email interactions. And if you did come up with some answers, or, you know, if it was closed out, and like you said, you already started a tally. So maybe it would be something to share so people know that, you know, there is something happening and they're not just up in space and nobody's looking at it. Sorry.
Thank you.
But anyway, so my comment tonight is like most of the people up here. So I want to thank the school board, the staff, the administration. Everybody has been amazing this year and really did so much to keep our kids in school. And that means so much to me personally. I have 3 small children, and like Matt was saying, it was not working remote for me at all. I had one daughter that hid under a table half the time. And so that's just amazing. And we've really proven together that it can be done safely. You know, we really knocked it out of the park. And regarding the policies for both masks and quarantine, I just, it's time to move forward. It's time for these policies to change. We're in a different place than we were in the fall. Today, I checked the stats. There are 0 active cases in Gilford as of right now, according to the WMUR. You know, the cases in general in the state are way down. And we need to look at all the facts and our experiences here in our district, in our community. And really do the right thing by our children. With that said, there should be no reason why we cannot move forward with the community and let families decide when and if it's appropriate for our children to wear masks. There are no mandated masks in public now. It's optional. Our children are out there on masks because it's not mandated. And this is a public school district. Therefore, the mandate should be removed and masks should be optional. Regarding quarantine, I would really like the school board to look at our numbers for quarantine, how many positive cases have been transferred in the classroom. If this is a small percentage of individuals, I'm asking that we immediately stop following the guidelines. Let us make a more educated decision based on our experience here in Gilford. Eliminate the close contact quarantine altogether and start treating this like we do any cold, flu, or a case of strep throat, which somehow my kids actually got this year, but they never got COVID, so I'm not sure how that works. But with an amazing job the school nurses have done in collaboration with our parents, keeping kids home when feeling ill, there's no reason we cannot head in this direction. So tonight with the school board, regardless of how you feel individually about the mask mandate, this is a choice that should be given to us parents, the parents that you all represent. We know better than anyone what is best for our children. And please consider taking this action now as well as changing the policy in quarantine. These policies no longer make sense and are no longer in our children's best interest. The scales have shifted in a more positive direction and it's time to join them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the two SAUs. My name is Joe Haas, H-A-A-S, Joseph S. Haas at hotmail.com. And I live in Gilmanton, Mountain Road. And I wanted to talk first on some replies that some of the people made here, just two people. Well, getting back to the original postings, I think it was you said that there was a posting at the school in the singular, that means this school, but what about Gilmanton and the website? I presume it's only the Gilford website, because let me tell you the story. I mean, this is like the Q&A. I don't expect an answer from you. I just want to say that I had a run-in with problems in Gilmanton. I called there yesterday. Joyce, who's usually around, wasn't around. Dexter was around. I said, is there a public input section for the joint meeting? And I get a warped answer. You know, he says at the Gilmanton one afterwards, there's one at the end. And I've been to those in the past. I mean, usually there's one in the front and one in the end, or the middle. And I called yesterday and I visited today and I pressed the buzzer and Stephanie came on. She said, I'll bring you out the agenda, hang on. So I hung on and I got the agenda for Gilmanton, the one after this. I said, where's the one for tonight, for the joint? And she gave me a phone number to the Gilford one for Kim. She was very nice. She gave me one through an email and I finally got one, like at the 11th hour. It would have been nice. I called Laconia Daily Sun. They said, well, if you had notified us the day before, we would have had a guy over there to cover the meeting. So that's not being covered, I guess. I don't know if somebody's here or not. But I thought I'd relay my disgust with trying to get the agenda because it's not on their website. Or else if it is, Dexter doesn't know where it is. And then Joyce, who was supposed to be back today, was not. Or she was, but she was busy or something. And that's just one of my two comments on what people have said. The first man that spoke said something about you quarantine the sick, not the well. This is why I came here tonight, because another analogy to that is you subsidize the poor, but not the rich. I go back to volume 55 of the New Hampshire reports, page 503 at 505, 1875. It's the Brentwood School District case number 2. This was in the old days where they said, if the poor man or poor child behaves himself honestly and uprightly, the state owes him the services of the schoolmaster and charges the property of its more favored children in order to pay this debt, which is an exemplification of the law of Christian charity. That's roughly the exact words in paragraph 2 of page 505 of that volume of the New Hampshire reports, meaning the decisions of the New Hampshire Supreme Court. And since then, it's gone out of whack. I mean, years ago, it was the swept was, I think, $5 per thousand. Now it's down to $2, I think. And I've been around to the Andrew Valinsky, Tobin, John Tobin information sessions. I've been to 3 of them, Concord, Rochester, and Wolfboro. And what I'm getting at is I asked that it be put on the agenda that you talk about the Conval case, Kentucky Valley, which Michael Tierney, the attorney in Manchester, is handling for the districts down in the Keene area, not districts, SAUs. And finally, I guess the Claremont case that started it all did join up. So I don't know, there's probably 5 or 6 of them. And the bottom line is, well, let me go back to another case, the Londonderry case of 2006. You read on page 9 of 19 of that on the internet version, there's a V in the middle of the page, right above there. It says, no downshifting. The DRA, well, let me back up. You all, the towns vote, they say, well, we want this amount of money to operate the schools. Then you as the SAU, you have an MS-22 form that you send through the portal to the DRA, Department of Revenue Administration, and they then give a tax rate to you. That's under the old statute. It says once the tax rate goes to the Board of Selectmen, they shall send that over to the tax collector to bill and collect. Then there was another statute that says you may do that. It's enabling legislation. It's your choice whether you want to do it or not. But the Constitution, Article 5, Part 2, says that tax rates and taxes are supposed to be reasonable and proportional. And that's the bottom line. There's no more, supposed to be no more rich town, poor town. And the state is supposed to be supplying all this money. And just my own personal opinion is 3/4 of your tax goes to the school. If everybody's comes down, residential and business, the solution is businesses pay 7.7% business profits tax. I said, just go up on that tax to equal or approach what they're paying now and give that statewide tax a true way to go to the state, not just be kept at the town. You know, like Newington. I mean, they have all that. That's one example that Valinsky gave. So since the first email that I sent to the SAU 79 was to John Fossey when he was there. And that was January of 2019. January 2019, John Fossey. And then Adam knows, he gets all these emails. When somebody said emails just a few minutes ago, the only 2 that I got is comments at SAU 73 and then the SAU 73. I only have 2. I don't have, their website is better than yours, I think, to that degree, because you can individually write to either of them, any of them. These other people, I guess, has to go through channels to get to somebody. And I have been to their meetings a few times, and I tried to get that on the agenda, it just wouldn't go. They wouldn't talk about it. So there's an Article 8 of the New Hampshire Constitution that was in 2018, I guess it became effective 2019. There's only been one case where that has been tried out. That was when the House sued the governor. And then that was on the federal funds. It says in Article 8, a resident of the town where they reside being eligible to vote. They don't have to be a registered voter, just of age. Those three categories, if those exist, they can sue in the court that for the town or municipal subdivision, like your subdivision, the SAU, that to do things right. And what I'm saying is, I was at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night in Gilmerton. I said, the Article 8 says you can sue on who approves it or who spends it. And when this money is being accumulated from everybody's property tax, that approval that they give to the town treasurer to send a check over to you, that's where I told them, no, do not send any more. Have them, do not feed the beast. You're the beast. You are barking up the wrong tree. You got to tell the state to give you the money. $9,929.00. That's what it was in 2 bills in 2019, ITLs. But that's just the adequacy amount. I mean, the actual is twice that. They're working on it down in Keene on the actual amount. So that's number one. Then number two is when you get the money, once you spend it, spent past tense, that's when a citizen can come forward and say, no, that was ill-gotten gains. And if to stop it, they can sue. So I'm telling the SAU of Gilmerton that if they ever get that next check, that, you know, they're going to see me, they're going to have to see me in court. And one last thing is trying to get this information, you know, the payment schedule. Chris Hayes did an excellent job. You know, when in the old building at the Four Corners in Gilmerton, I'd walk in, knock on the door, walk in, you know, her dog would be there or somebody, I guess it was Rachel had the dog. But anyways, I would ask questions because I didn't know about the payment schedule. I mean, who knows on a right to know what to actually ask for what type of document? I mean, you have a little chit chat with the people. And that's what I had with her. And I finally got one. She would send me one and I'm still waiting for the last one. So that's my right to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just have a few rhetorical questions for you and a couple of comments. What is different about this meeting, Gretchen and Kirk and a few others of you, than was at your budget meeting where you didn't wear masks? Why now? Just rhetorical. The other question is comment. I always wanted to be a comedian, but no, this is not intended to be funny. And in fact, it's quite serious to me. My other question to you, rhetorical also, is that here in this MOA that you will probably use as a crutch to deny our children the right to breathe in their classrooms, while you can go in your office by yourself and catch a fresh breath of air with AC. I just wanted to point out here, I see that it says that all people, including but not limited to teachers, parents, administrators, vendors, contractors, other employees, and students shall be required to wear a mask at all times while in the school building and on the school grounds, with the only exceptions during designated mask breaks, physical education classes. Okay, I'm not sure when the last time you were allowed to set foot in your own schools was, because even as president-elect of the Volunteer Steering Committee, I wasn't allowed to volunteer in the school this year. But I just challenge you to ask, did the kids unmask during PE this year? I think you'll find that there's a hard no on that. And also, as my husband pointed out, our daughter, who, by the way, was going to participate in the volleyball camp, funded by a grant that was for COVID relief for children who were traumatized by the COVID-19 pandemic, are in that gym every day since yesterday, wearing a mask while they play volleyball. Now, how disgusting is that? Sorry, I'm becoming emotional. Okay. Final thing. So my question that's rhetorical is, how are you going to reconcile these lies to children like her? Okay. See that face? That's what's going on. You weren't wearing masks at the budget committee, but you're wearing them now. Why? And why does this MOA that you might use to block our attempts to free our kids from being muzzled every day? These are lies. This is a lie, and I want to know how you're going to reconcile that. We elected you.
I would like to correct your statement. I was one of the school board members that attended the budget hearings. I did wear my mask because the notice on the doors of the town hall said all masks should be placed prior to entering the building. I wore my mask the entire time. So before you make a blanket statement, I think you really need to stop and think. Some of us did protect.
I think she's referring to the meeting the other night. And that's a fair point. In my public life, I'm vaccinated. I'm happy to not wear a mask when it's not required. But I also am an elected representative who signed a memorandum of agreement for this school district. So what's that? Can you refer me to this memorandum? I think I have a. I have.
And look at the last line of paragraph 6. Turn on your microphone and stand up and tell us what it says.
I have it right here, and it's underlined. I have the same copy. Could we just talk about the memorandum of agreement? I can read the section right here. Both parties reserve the right to revisit the regulations if state or federal guidance changes over the course of 2020-21 school year. A school board vote would need to happen in order to make any agreement upon changes. So what I'd like to ask Kirk though is this agreement was negotiated in the same manner that folks are complimenting us on getting folks back to school, kids back to school in the fall. This agreement was the crux, was the reason that we were able to make that happen for the community, because we negotiated in good faith an agreement that expires on, I believe it is June 30th.
June 30th.
This expires on June 30th. So if we were to break this agreement, we need to go back to the bargaining table with the teachers union to renegotiate this to get that to happen for the rest of the school year.
Just for the record, would you read the couple of sentences before that dealing with changing guidance? And for the record, I will state that guidance is not the same as actual law. Just guidance.
I'm happy to provide copies of this. I don't think I need to read the whole thing. Which sentences? 2 sentences ahead. Let's see. Well, I'm just going to go back 2 sentences. Social distancing shall be required at all times by all people in class, in the schools and on school grounds. Administration and teachers shall respond according to the statewide response steps to any failures by students to any of the aforementioned safety protocols. Administration shall respond accordingly to failures of staff to comply with the aforementioned safety protocols with disciplinary measures. Those are the 2 sentences you were looking for. Those are the 2 before that. But anyhow, I'm not going to get into a Q&A, but I am confident that if we were to make, I'm happy to entertain a vote to renegotiate this if anyone would like, but it's my understanding that we can't make a unilateral decision regarding this MOA tonight. The beginning of it says this memorandum of agreement is entered into by the Gilford School Board and the Gilford Education Association. Here and after the term teacher will refer to any employee, including the current collective bargaining agreement between the board and the GEA. And
Gretchen, just a point of order.
Matt, yep.
Just a quick question. My assumption, and I don't know how you guys maybe somewhat different. In a situation like this, typically what we've done in Gilmanton is, if the board makes a recommendation, we would either affirm or reject it. If a board member wants to make a motion about a topic, they are so welcome to do so, but there's no guarantee it'll pass. So meaning, I guess that's the way I'm looking at it, is if but I see what you're saying is this is not a in this room conversation. But you know, I think if you have board members that are interested in making the motion with the understanding that you can talk to GEA, or you know, but that's your decision as a board, not, you know what I'm saying? I'm meaning it's not, and I don't mean this offensively, but it's not the audience's decision. If someone on the board makes the motion, it either votes and affirms, or if there is no motion to be made, then there's nothing to be had. It's a rule of order.
So I can make one suggestion. It says both parties reserve the right to revisit these regulations if state and/or federal guidance changes. A school board vote would need to happen in order to make any agreed upon changes. So that means you would have to negotiate a change with the other party. And once that's agreed upon, then you would have to vote. I believe what the people are asking is for you to have an affirmative vote to enter into a renegotiation with the other party. That's what they're asking.
And we're happy to, and just for background, I'm happy to entertain a conversation, but just know, and to the same point that I was happily not wearing a mask at that meeting the other day. I'm bound by what I signed then. That's why I'm wearing a mask. I don't wear a mask to the grocery store. I'm perfectly comfortable with that, but understanding that I'm following what I signed in this building. All that to be said, we've done our due diligence. I asked this question, we did reach out to, and my understanding is we'd have to go to the table. So if someone would like to make a motion to renegotiate, by all means, but bear in mind that negotiations with a union are going to take some time, and we have 9 days of school left. So, okay. Related to, does anyone want to entertain a conversation?
I have a question first. Yeah. Kirk, I emailed you last night asking, and Gretchen, maybe I should have CC'd you, maybe I should have started this process earlier. Has the union taken a hard line on this, or is there the ability for them to say, hey, like Manchester just did, way more densely populated than we are, can at least they take the masks off when they're at their desks?
I have talked to, there's 3 presidents, 1 at each building. They have not polled their membership, so they would have to have a meeting with their membership and certainly poll their membership. So I don't know exactly where the entire membership stands on that question right now.
Did you get any sense from the presidents? I mean, do they think they have enough votes to, agree upon it? I mean, I think at this point in the game, yeah, there's only 9 days left, but each day 90 degrees with no AC for those little kids in the elementary school is a tall task. I mean, we had 75 kids call out yesterday. That's not productive either. So I'm just wondering, what is your sense with the presidents? Do they feel like that this could change?
I think my sense is that they would like to keep the masks on for the rest of the year, but that's just a sense. I don't know for sure. I don't know. Yep. Yep.
But I just want to reiterate, I did not come here with a mask lightly tonight.
To my understanding, because I raised all these questions in that September meeting in the belly of the SAU office, that this would not be applying to the general, this MOA is in conjunction with the CBA and has no bearing over our meetings, has no bearing over somebody walking across the field. You know what I'm saying? So that was specific to the CBA, which is school kids, not us at this meeting.
But that's fair, but I also feel I'm expecting my kid to come into the classroom and my nieces and nephews who all are in these schools. I don't make these decisions, and I don't think anyone sitting at the table, we all have skin in this game. I just feel like I'm trying to lead by example, given the fact that
that's a fair point, and you know, that's obviously your decision to make. But it was always my understanding that MOA never applied to us. It only applied as far as the CBA was concerned. So that's why I'm not wearing one now, because I don't wear one anywhere where I go now. So just not that it even matters, but I just wanted to throw that out.
And trust me, I think we went through the hoops. I think this, as I think Kirk will bring up as he moves forward, this expires, all of our summer programming, all of that stuff. The plan is to, as this MOA expires, so too does our mask mandate. It's I've been pushing I've been bugging him all day. So this is not something that we necessarily want to do, but at the same time, recognizing that through this process, we've tried to be pragmatic, meet the needs of a lot of students. Another thing that came up today from a parent who had reached out to me as well was that they have a type 1 diabetic student, and they sent their student to school. She was thrilled that her student had their second COVID shot today because they got it as soon as they were allowed to. And she felt very confident sending that child to school this semester because her child was able to have, she was assured that there would be masking within the schools, but she's very confident moving forward 2 weeks out of her COVID shot that that student she's okay without masking. And so I'm also trying to listen to those parents in this situation as well, who sent their kids to school expecting this mask mandate to be in effect through the school year. So all that to be said, does anyone want to make a motion?
Do we need to make a motion to go forward with the GE to say, hey, tomorrow, can we get a roll call ASAP, make something happen before the school year? I would be happy to make that motion.
We're still, as Nin pointed out, we've kind of gotten off of public comment. Absolutely. So let's listen to public comment and then I'll close that.
Is it the sense of the school board that a child coming to school involved in an act of civil disobedience by not wearing a mask would be left alone? Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Danielle.
Danielle Walter, Cherry Valley Road in Gilford. Thank you to the board, teachers, and administrators and maintenance workers. I've worked very hard to keep our children in the school this year. Last year, my child struggled tremendously with remote learning, and I was grateful to have the school open full-time with the extended day. I was even happier that throughout the year, we didn't make drastic decisions to close after the holidays and start that trend of closures. I do support unmasking our children in Gilford schools. These past couple days, my son has come home tired, bright red in the face, and does not understand why he can go to the local grocers with strangers without a mask, but has to wear one around children he sees every day. I grew up in Gilford. I love this community. I love everything it has to offer, but let's take a step into normalcy and give the parents back their freedom to make the choice to mask their children. I understand the parents that are sending their child to school with type 1 diabetes, but that child does have the option to wear a mask. Our children should not have to. That's it.
Thank you. Is there anyone else with public comment? All right, I'll close the first public comment. In follow-up to that, does anyone want to make any sort of motion?
Yeah. So just trying to, okay, so a motion to approach GEA tomorrow as far as negotiating the MOA to rescind or at least make the masks optional. Is that, I mean, it's kind of I wasn't really thinking about making this type of a motion. So how, it's not a memorandum of agreement.
MOA, it's an MOA.
Okay, that's why I didn't read it. Just make sure it's right.
So the motion on the table is to ask Kirk to reopen negotiations regarding this.
Yes.
MOA?
Yes, regarding the mask.
Making masks optional.
Correct, yes.
Is there a second to that motion?
I second that motion.
Okay. Any discuss? Oh, so it's seconded by Audra. Any discussion regarding that?
The only thing I want to, because of how it's listed in there as far as like the physical activities and stuff, I just want to, can we reach out to the teachers and make sure that they understand? Because it's my understanding also that that was not the expectation. If they're exerting themselves, that they can have those breaks, masks and stuff. I don't want kids passing out in the middle of the field. Let's make sure that that's, oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I want to make sure that the teachers are adhering to this memorandum as far as like the physical exertions and things like that. If they are outside, then they, yes, and they have their spacing, they shouldn't be wearing that. And let's make sure that the teachers are actually doing that. And likewise, renegotiating.
Maybe just follow up to see if there's anything else within that that is not being followed, because I was not aware of that either. All right, I'll call for a vote regarding the motion on the table. All those in favor? Is it just Gilford voting or? Yeah. It's a, I mean, it would affect, it's a, you I'm happy to have you vote if you want.
My feeling is that's the high school as well, and it's district-wide, and you guys should be voting on that.
So it looks like all except for any, all those against. So one against. So we'll look into that tomorrow. All right. Thank you for that. Superintendent's report.
Gretchen?
Yes.
I don't mean to interject, and I don't mean to, but the vote that you just took allows for the conversation with the Gilford Education Association. So if they agree, does that mean that the board has given approval to that agreement at this point, or do you need to take action that would accept their vote? I mean, am I making sense?
That's a fair point. I guess
because all you've really done is to entertain the conversation.
Correct.
What happens with that vote of the Gilford Education Association?
I guess we'd need another motion then on the table.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I'm glad you're here because some of us are new at this. Yeah, so do you want me to amend we already took that vote, so that's done. So I guess I'll make another motion then that if GEA does agree, then we are agreeing right now that is our permission to say, yes, if they agree, we agree, the MOA changes to allow masks to become optional. That makes sense?
I think
we're going for, yeah, so, okay, so that's the motion that we are saying yes, if as soon as they agree, it's done.
The only problem that I have with that is if they put other things in there that they want to do.
So strictly to the paragraph of the masks, we're only, the motion was for masks to become optional. So the second motion is to, if they agree, if the GEA agrees that masks can become optional, and solely that is the one line, the whole MOA, that we agree to make those changes. Clear as mud.
And I think this sort of highlights the fact that why we had sort of, while common sense would say one thing, that we had sort of not put this as an agenda item, knowing that a reopening of an MOA could well take more than the last 9 days of school to make happen. So it was sort of more of a pragmatic decision versus an opinion decision. So second by Nin. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor? All those opposed? So it looks like there are 3 against, or were you, what were you? Oh, she was a yes. Okay, so there were 2 against. All right, so the motion carries.
So I'm looking at article number 6 only, right? When I talk to the paragraph 6. Yep, thank you. Thanks. I just want to start off by saying thank you to learners, staff, parents, community members for all the support, all the hard work that has happened this school year. It has certainly been a journey that we will never forget. Certainly I will not forget. I'd just like to mention a few of the highlights that we've had throughout the 2021 school year. This past summer, summer of 20, we were able to offer competency recovery here at the high school in person. We were able to offer professional development here at the high school as well. At the high school during the school year, we offered internships for our students. We had students working out in the community in those internships. We also offered a wide array of performing arts opportunities here at the high school during this past school year, whether it was band or chorus or musicals here at the high school in this auditorium. We had our math team. Our math team was able to compete here at the high school as well. We did offer a full slate of after-school opportunities or activities for our students here at the high school as well. All of our sports teams were able to compete at the high school, and we were able to compete at the highest level, winning several different championships in several different seasons here at the high school. We were able to offer in-person instruction throughout the school year. We had a winter carnival here at the high school. The high school students, there's a group of high school students that planted a garden out in front of or on the side of the middle school. We were able to have a prom here at the high school. Our seniors held a bonfire down at the Meadows property, which was a great activity for the seniors and got a lot of great support for. We were also recently able to host the Division III track championships here at the high school as well. Just, I guess, want to not lose sight of everything that we have been able to do this year here at this high school. And thank you to the Gilmington School Board for the support. Thank you to the Gilford School Board for the support. Thank you to Anthony and Tim for the leadership here at the high school, as well as the parents, the students that have really persevered through this incredibly challenging school year. Our high school students have completed their state assessments for the school year. So in October, at our October meeting, we will have data to report on. They've taken the SAT as well as the science SAS test here at the high school. We will be looking to offer academic and enrichment activities throughout the summer here at the high school. Also looking to offer after-school support for academics at the high school in the next year, in the 21-22 school year. As you know, we have received a couple of grants. Well, we received the, we're working on the ESSER 2 grant right now, and we have the ESSER 3 grant, which is coming our way. And one of the requirements for the ESSER 3 grant is to post our reopening plan and leave it on our website for public input and or ask for public input at the school board meeting. So our reopening plan is the same as what we started with in August of 2020. We did make some updates throughout the school year, and adjustments have been made on that plan. Again, this is the plan for the 2021 school year. It's not for the 21-22 school year, but just the plan has been included in your packet. I've made some updates just as far as the date that we're updating it on June 8th here. I've added the year 2020 just to make sure that it's clarified that this information is for the 2020-21 school year. I've put that date on the surveys that we did with the parents last year and staff as well. We've made some adjustments on the restrictions around travel. We've made some adjustments and adopted DHHS information on the difference of quarantining from 14 to 10 days, as well as 3 feet as opposed to the 3 to 6 feet that was in the Department of Education's reopening guidance. And then also just talked about the surveying that we've done for each trimester for instructional models, so that families did have a choice whether or not to be in person or to be remote each trimester. And then offered some information about musicals and updated that we did offer fall, winter, and spring musicals. The calendar adjustments that we've made throughout the year to early release days and making those full day professional development days periodically throughout the year. So unless there's other questions from board members, we will post that on our website as required by the ESSER 3 grant tomorrow. As we transition into our summer learning and enrichment opportunities, we will be mask optional in our schools and continue to social distance or be outside as much as possible. We're also encouraging hand sanitizing and hand washing. We will continue to use our electrostatic sprayers in cleaning up after the day's usage in the schools as well. The Gilmington Superintendent, Bruce Beasley, and I spoke earlier last week and wondered if there's an opportunity maybe for a committee to study common early release dates and then report back to the board. This could certainly help, I think, as Bruce talked about with the bus schedule in Gilmington on early release days, but this could also provide opportunities for the staff of Gilmington and Gilford to work together on some professional development, perhaps, or some learning opportunities. I've included in the board packet also information on a curriculum coordinator position that we had talked about at the last board meeting. And really what I've put together is the money that we would propose for a salary, the days contracted, number of days, the salary of a retiring math specialist, as well as the salary that is budgeted for professional development to kind of cover some of these activities. I've written a little bit about mentoring and our induction program. That's something that we've picked up, the performance assessment work group, our portrait of a learner, the data and assessment coordination that the math specialist does right now. And it was previously done by a curriculum coordinator, leading curriculum meetings at the middle school, high school, elementary school, and in Gilmington, early release days and professional development coordination and planning, grant management, the Title II and Title IV-A grants that are written by myself and Esther Kennedy at this time. And again, I'll read a little bit about what was written here in an effort to be transparent about the work. It's not the work that is the concern. The leadership team appreciates and wants to do the work, but the fact is that we have other responsibilities to take care of and complete as well. In a small district, we all wear several different hats and do many different jobs and take on many different responsibilities. The leadership team members want to be involved in this work, but feel like we are spreading ourselves very thin to cover the extra responsibilities. The board has been very generous with stipends to do this extra work, and that is appreciated. But as an example, from late September through February, which is our deliberative session. That's usually budget work, and that's something that principals, myself, and certainly Amy Lee is very involved in. Next year, we will be negotiating with our teachers a new contract, and certainly that is an area of focus for Amy and I from summer until December. The three principals, their focus is on students and teachers, as it should be their number one priority. They also have to do observations and evaluations. And so carving out time to make sure these other responsibilities are completed does take time and may not get the focus that is needed. As an example of Esther's many hats, she's not only the district special education director, but she also is the homeless liaison, our court liaison, our Title IX coordinator. She's connected to the ESOL program as well as the Title I program. As of tonight, we have 2 openings at the high school that we'll talk about. We also have some nominations that we'll do in non-public for positions, for one position at the high school. And then lastly, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Gary Glad. Gary is our groundskeeper, and he came back on his own time after the students had left practice at the track and field facility. And Gary came back and worked to make the facility, the grounds, shine, make them presentable, and really has gone above and beyond to make things look tremendous. And we've gotten a lot of great compliments. So just wanted to say a big thank you to Gary. And also we continue to work with the Gilford Police Department in all 3 of our schools and working on the Alice components. And the high school has done a lot of great work on that. Tim and Anthony can talk to that, but they've done a tremendous amount of work on that, and that will continue next year as well. Thank you.
Thank you. So I heard a couple things for potential discussion if people want, but no required action items, correct?
Just any input on the plan that we'd like to put up on our website as far as again, it's the 2020-2021 school year reopening plan that we would put up, and then anything that the school board would like to talk about as far as the curriculum coordinator position.
So just to clarify, that was just sort of, this plan is just what we reviewed back when we were considering coming back to school. And this is sort of a technicality that we have to put online as a requirement for the ESSER grant.
Correct. Yes. It was put in place because the government wanted to get students back in school. And so even though we've been in school all year, I've asked the Commissioner of Education and he said, yes, you still need to post your plan for public input, even though you've been in school throughout the entire year.
Do you need an official motion on that, or?
It'd be great to have an motion, but it's not necessary, I don't think.
You don't think we need one?
I don't think we actually need a motion on it because we approved the plan back at the very beginning.
It was approved back in August. Yes, absolutely.
So is there anyone that opposes putting that online? All right, so I'll through that. And then as far as the study committee for early release dates, is that something you'll take care of potentially putting together?
Yep, we can, Bruce and I can definitely work on that if that's something that the board would like us to do. Okay. Or boards, I should say, sorry.
Wouldn't it make sense to have the committee that we already have talking to each other look at that instead of having another committee?
I can't really hear you down here.
All right.
I really can't hear down here. Way. Sorry.
It's okay. Wouldn't it make sense to have the committee that's already meeting with the Gil committee that we have to look at that rather than having another committee?
The committee of the administrative group that meets on a regular basis, is that way?
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong then, but there's a two board members from each board, right? And the superintendents that have met when we renegotiated the area agreement. I think that's what you're talking about. Is that correct?
Because I'm assuming that we're starting those back up.
That's fine with me. The reason I brought it to Kirk's attention is if any early release day that occurs where Gilmanton and Guilford aren't in sync, if Gilmanton has an early release day, the transportation company has trouble doing the Gilmanton bus runs and getting to Guilford to do the high school pickup there. The timing of it doesn't work. So as many of those early release days as we can possibly coordinate before calendars get developed in the fall and through the winter, that would be beneficial, I think, for transportation and for many families who rely on.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I just don't want to create another committee just to talk about.
No, that's fine. That can be an agenda item of that committee. That's fine.
As one of the members of that committee, though, I would almost deflect that back to you two to kind of hash out and then recommend something like that to us at a board meeting, just because we don't need to get into that minutia, I don't think. Is that fair for the Gilmanton reps?
I think we would agree as well. Yeah, okay. I think that's something that can be handled super to super.
Yeah. All right.
You agree?
I know it's hard to see everyone. And then does anyone else have any input or follow up to anything else in Kirk's report? Yep, he was providing, I think, some information to us. If anyone wants to take action on it, they are welcome to. If not, it was provided to us at recommendation at the last meeting, I think.
Yeah, it's going to take a little time to digest it all.
Yep.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Is that it from you?
Yes, thank you.
All right. Next up is Anthony in the high school principal's report.
Good evening, everyone. I'm hoping that I can do this from my seat just so I can have sort of a little table, if that's all right.
Yep, just hold the mic a little closer so we can hear you.
Scott, would you mind? Thank you, Jay. So good evening, everybody. I just wanted to go over a couple of items that we've been able to accomplish at the high school over the last year. And most recently was our prom. We had a very successful junior senior prom held here on campus, never held it here on campus while I've been here. But overall, the success, we had about 50 students in 3 different cohorts. So 150 students. We allowed outside visitors as well. We had a prom march where we had it outside. Typically, we were inside in the gym. We'd pack that place. I don't think we'll ever do it again in the gym because it was such a great event. It was like a Gilford Old Home Day with everybody joining us. And so the skies were perfect that evening. So hopefully in the future years, we'll continue to have this outside. Then the week after that, the Friday night, we had our bonfire, which Kirk had alluded to. It was nice for the seniors just to be able to put their phones down and actually be kids again. It was nice with the rough year that they've all had. They've had so many things taken away from them. It was really enjoyable to see them just hang out. We had the unveiling of the yearbooks. Typically, we do that this week. It would be a Wednesday night, but for contact tracing, close contacts, we really tried to minimize the contact for our seniors so they could walk that stage Friday night. So that was another fantastic event that we were able to accomplish and put forward for our students. We also had a shortened winter carnival this second trimester. So the students wanted to really continue along with that camaraderie. So we were able to have a spring carnival, and that was organized by 2 of our teachers, our PE and health teachers, Amy Tripp and Brant O'Hara. I just wanted to put a feather in their cap and say thank you for all the work that they did in working with our student leaders to organize that the Friday before the long weekend, Memorial Day weekend. And then we also had a barbecue that day. It was just set the tone for a great weekend for everybody as we sent them off. 2 weeks ago, the Hewitt Celebration of Achievement happened over at the Hewitt. They also did cohorts. So it was a long evening, but a great evening for many of our students who received some scholarships, awards, and recognitions. Specifically, I want to highlight Riley Demers and Tristan Dow. They each finished 1st and 2nd place in the small engine competition held in late April. So that was held at MB Tractor in Tilton, and they received an $800 scholarship for the 2nd place winner and a $1,000 prize scholarship for Tristan Dow. We are all set for Senior Awards Night this Thursday. I have tickets for all of you and for anybody that would like to attend. That's 6 o'clock here in the auditorium. And then we also have graduation. We build up this week. We're going to do that back at the Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion. Last year we had to take a little hiatus from that, but we're back to our traditional ceremony. And we'll be back to normal pretty much with everything that we do in a traditional ceremony, with the exception of students being, they're not going to be able to be on stage. We can't social distance them properly, so they'll be down in the first section, and then invited guests as well as family members will be able to sit in sections 2 and 3. We'll also live stream both that event as well as the Senior Awards Night for those that cannot get tickets for Thursday night's event. On Friday, the graduation, we do not have tickets, but we've asked for students to bring, they're allowed up to 10 guests. However, there's plenty of area outside of under the pavilion, or I should say outside of the pavilion, if we do have overflow, but I think we'll be fine. And then also most recently, our student leaders have met with a number of different classes to get feedback on what worked well this year and what didn't as we got through the pandemic. A couple of the key themes that continue to show up from students were they enjoyed the breaks. And so we're going to continue to have breaks, hopefully not mass breaks, because we'll be able to do away with those next fall. However, it's just good teaching practice to give breaks. And so students really enjoyed those 5 minutes, 10 minutes outside. The teachers did report that, yes, it was lost time instructionally. However, the students came back more focused. So the teachers reported it was almost like they were re-energized. And so it really worked out well. We're hoping to continue that next year. The students loved having the 20-minute study hall every day this year. And that was to support 4 lunches as opposed to 3, to spread students out during lunches. And the other thing that really struck us was the students still want to have access to cleaning supplies. They really want to continue to practice good hygiene. And so we'll make that available for all of our students. Having to do with staff, at the most recent early release in May, we discussed and worked with 8th grade staff members on where the gaps are that we may notice coming into 9th grade. And then the special ed department worked on finalizing all of the paperwork for their IEPs. Tim Goggin and I have met over the last couple of weeks with all of our 7 new staff members, and we looked at the highs and lows and what the goals are for our 7 new staff members going forward are, but they seem to be very pleased with how their transitional year has gone. Most of them commented on the community feel that Gilford and Gilmanton provide. And we also are going to bid farewell to 2 of our retirees. Lori Belanger, our crisis counselor, who's been with us for 29 years at Gilford High School, and Julie Andrews, health teacher. She's been with us for 35 years. So collectively 64 years of experience teaching at Gilford High School. We honored them last Friday in front of our senior class. And they only have about 9 more days and then no more alarm clocks. So I am jealous, and many of us staff members are, of what they're going to look forward to in the next chapter. I have included some discipline data as we typically do with this board meeting. We can explain any of those data points that you'd like for us to go deeper on. And then I also do have a senior open campus proposal we had discussed last meeting and bringing a couple of students forward. So we have Shannon Burton and Maura Hughes, along with Mr. Tim Goggin, our assistant principal, who will give a brief presentation just on some of the successes and benefits of open campus and having the 3.25 GPA relaxed to a 2.67, and what that could mean to a number of our students. So I can turn it over to Mr. Goggin and to the 2 girls, and we'll hear from them.
So yeah, as Anthony alluded to, we solicited feedback from staff about what worked this year. Obviously, we did things unorthodox in the sense that we had to, come back to school, teach and learn during a pandemic. So there was a lot of things that we changed, some of which I think we took from, and some of which I think we can continue to practice. Certainly, as Anthony stated, I think the mass breaks will hopefully be a thing of the past next year. But there is a lot of benefit to having students go outside to breathe fresh air. Our social studies department's amazing. I look out my office window every other day, and it's nice out there. And Mr. Sewell, Chris Sewell, will be out there with his social studies class, teaching a class under a tree. It's pretty awesome. And I think that the teachers have grown accustomed to and appreciate walking around the building with the students. I know Steve O'Riordan, our business teacher, stated the other day, you know, I get to know students in a different light. I get to have a conversation with our kids that's separate from academics, and we get to know each other better. And those relationships develop over the trimester as they have opportunities to spend 5-10 minutes each day away from the academics. So that's just one example of the lessons we learned from the school year. The second being, I know we presented this to you folks last school board meeting, I believe, in regards to the senior open campus, not including juniors, but seniors going forward to a 2.67. We solicited feedback from staff and students as well, and overwhelmingly, the staff and students felt that maintaining the current 2.67 GPA would be the most appropriate thing going forward. A lot of the conversations I've had with staff and students focused around equitable, making it equitable for the students and for to access this, we'll say, privilege that customarily they may not have had the ability to have that opportunity if it remained at a 3.25. Students that obtain a 2.67 are awesome students. They just may struggle to reach that next level academically speaking. And from an equitable standpoint, we want to extend that courtesy to a wider range of students and allow them the opportunity to be self-directed, allow them the opportunity to live more or less at high school, a college campus vibe where they can make decisions based upon their schedule. Maybe they have field hockey, maybe they have a club they have to attend, and they want to go home real quickly to grab a bite to eat prior to getting on the bus to travel to White Mountain to play a soccer game. These are the things in the conversation center around just allowing those privileges to exist to a wider range of students. In speaking to Monica Sawyer, there's a lot of benefit to allow the kids to have this mindfulness of being able to say, I need to go home, I need to unplug, I need to focus on me for now, I'm gonna come back fifth block and do what I need to do. From a discipline standpoint, though it's all anecdotal and it's all gut reaction, I think this has been a major step in the right direction to allow students to be more mature. And as a result, I suspect that's maybe lessened the likelihood of some behaviors in the classroom. Again, that's just a pure kind of gut feeling I have, but I think that's the direction we want to go, is we want students to feel that they can make decisions on their own, they own their own learning, and they can decide how best to spend their time when they need to. So without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic over to Maura Hughes and Shannon Burden. They presented to Mrs. Spraza and myself the other day, and they have some great ideas, and they feel very strongly, much like our staff, that we should maintain this 2.67.
Hi, I'm Shannon Burton. So I've always kind of struggled with school. I always get really overwhelmed and anxious easily, and then I have a really hard time focusing on my work. But having open campus really gave me a chance to kind of, you know, get out of the building, clear my head, and get myself refocused, even if I'm going out for 15 minutes to get coffee for me and my friends, or if I'm going home for half an hour or whatever. But it's really given me a chance to get myself refocused and do what I can on my work. And I feel like a lot of kids work hard. They're just not straight A students. And I feel like all of us deserve that chance to do what we can.
I'm Maura Hughes. I'm a student athlete at Gilford High School, and I use my open campus to take my time during the day, go home, get something to eat before one of my sports competitions. This opportunity has given me the time to take my time in the morning, sleep in, get as much sleep I need, and also do my homework at night, because instead of getting ready for the next day, I can just do my homework because I know I have that time during the day to go home and get everything I need for later that day with sports.
So certainly the conversation centered mostly around having students have that self-centered, not self-centered, but the ability to select their times and really kind of prioritize what they need to for that day. And speaking with Monica Sawyer and other guidance counselors, it's amazing that these kids do what they do. They come to school first thing in the morning, and some of them don't get home and they're completed their schoolwork until 10 at night. So I can't imagine that. Once I turn 40, I'm in bed by 8. So to see these kids just go nonstop, I think this is just an additional thing we can offer them to allow them to manage their time appropriately and as they see fit. I welcome any questions. Probably should ask the board.
You in the public comments time, correct? Yep. Anyone on the board have questions?
I do, but if I saw that Kyle was going for it first, so go ahead, Kyle.
Not so much a question. I certainly supported this previously. I still support it now. I just want to make sure that the administration, that you guys reserve the right to revoke this, right? We don't want to see a 3.8 GPA student drop down to 3.0, just, I got my, I want to make sure. So if a student regresses from one trimester to the next, we want to make sure that we have those conversations with them and let them know that you guys will pull that back every time. But I certainly, lowering it, I think it definitely makes it more attainable for a much broader scope of kids. And I think it's definitely, something that I remember that I had back when I was here, it was it was like 2.2. It was like a C. So for 2.67, that definitely is, for a lot of kids, that's a good grade. So it's nothing to be ashamed of. And I definitely think we should, afford that opportunity. So
I absolutely agree. I think the other conversation to be had is when a student is on the cusp of earning that and having that conversation about how can you obtain that grade and have this opportunity and privilege given to you. It's a great carrot. In my business with discipline, it's consequence is a thing of it's a thing of the past. I mean, obviously it's going to be part of the job, but there's another priority that we should focus on is rewarding behavior. If we can reward behavior and kids are on that cusp and I can offer something like this as an opportunity, I think that goes miles beyond issuing your standard consequence for numerous fronts.
Michelle?
So understanding that next year's schedule may be different, when you were doing the research and putting it together, was there any consideration? This year we offered that to the juniors. And I understand that these two ladies that are here before us tonight are juniors this year. Is there any consideration to look at extending that to the junior class as well?
So we did discuss that at the last school board meeting, but I did promise you I would only bring back the seniors because I believe there was a question directed. It is strictly seniors. And I said, at this point, yes. However, if it continues to work well with the seniors, we would possibly bring something forward next year for the juniors. Or if it's in your purview to say, let's take it to policy committee now and we can look at juniors as well. And if I could, I also want to clarify one item. So we're asking that this be effective for next year for the seniors if you approve this. However, I would suggest that it still go through the policy committee, but we don't meet over the summer usually. So I just want to make sure that we put it through the policy committee still.
This year, when the juniors were doing it though, we saw the same benefits with the junior class as we did the senior class. There wasn't higher incidence of, I don't know what the juniors could have been doing, but they were following the rules and adhering to the guidelines.
Most were, and for those that were not, we revoked that. Yep, we had the discussion, and that's written right in the policy.
Thank you.
Yep.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we adopt the GPA of 2.67 for seniors open campus and that it go to policy to be looked at.
Thanks, Karen. Is there a second? Seconded by Kyle. Any discussion?
My only concern is that a 267 is a B-. I personally would prefer to see that at a 275. I think that's quite the drop. And I absolutely appreciate the student input, and I'm not trying to put that down whatsoever, but I think that that is a privilege that we're allowing, and you do need to meet a little bit of that expectation of keeping your grades up. So I totally agree that 3.25 could be potentially a little high, but I would like to see it very higher than 2.67.
Any other discussion?
I would just ask that during policy that the notion of it being extended to the juniors be investigated a little bit. I know that went back, I'm going to date myself, way back when I was in high school here. We had a separate GPA for juniors to have some open campus privileges. It wasn't fully extended to being off campus, but at least having open campus within the building. So maybe some kind of extra responsibility that these could be offered for maintaining a GPA that is maybe a little bit higher than the seniors.
So there's a motion on the table. Any other discussion, or are we ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion on the table? Opposed? Motion passes. Looks like there were 2 abstentions, 2 against. All right. Anything else from you, Anthony? No? All right, next up, Business Administrator's Report.
Could I ask a question first to Anthony?
Oh.
So I was informed the night before the prom that there was going to be some changes, and I had emailed Kirk about that, and he said that you were going to include it in your report, but I didn't hear anything about it, and so I just wanted you to clarify. As far as I know, there's no longer a king and queen. Is that accurate? And is there a new title
For this year's
this past prom?
So this year's prom, we did a prom court, as we've done many other years.
What exactly? Could you just explain a little bit more? It's been a while since I've been to the prom.
Yep, absolutely. So this year, students, I believe, had to receive 2 nominations from their peers in order to go on the ballot to be a part of the prom court. And so I believe there were 3 cohorts. So there was two prom court winners from each cohort. And in the past years, we've had basically like a lottery system if you want to be nominated, or if you just want to be a prom king or queen or part of the court, you would ask to be put into literally a fishbowl. And then we will have random drawings as to who wins king or queen, sometimes with a court or just a court. We've never had just a king and queen alone. Does that answer your question?
So last year there wasn't a king and queen?
Last year we didn't have a prom. That was by the school.
Well, the prior prom, I guess.
Prior year was let's see, it was at Gilford Youth Center. We had a lottery, and that was a court with a king and queen. So I'm guessing it was probably anywhere from 6 to 8 people, and then we also chose randomly a king and queen.
Okay, so but that was eliminated this prom.
Yes, we did not do the king and queen. And then in 2018, we had a lottery with just the prom court. 2017, we were a Mountain Washington boat. We had the lottery with just the court. So it's gone back and forth.
If you want to march back to the 90s, there wasn't a prom court. There was just a prom court back in the 90s for a couple classes as well,
sure.
If I recall.
Okay.
All set? All right. Business Administrator's Report.
Hi, everybody. So for May updates from the SAU office, we've got year-end and final payrolls happening in the payroll and AP department. Of course, work continues on our accounting software conversion. For facilities, they've been, as you've heard already, very busy with the year-end events and keeping the fields and grounds looking amazing. Food service went through a review with the state and received rave reviews and some future suggestions on meal claiming for remote students. I've included a copy of our year-end estimated figures. Fund balance is estimated at between 1.1 and 1.2 million. These numbers do not include June reimbursements for the grant. And I can't guarantee exactly how much will be expended in the payables, but like I said, this is a close estimate. And also the Meadows Committee met in May. They did a exterior review of the building. So we got to take a tour and have a meeting inside the classroom there at the Meadows. Initially, they wanted to move forward with classroom renovations, but because we don't have a review of the cost to make those renovations, the committee was supportive of asking that we move forward with the phases that we promoted before, with getting safety and security for the exterior of the building started. We broke that into 4 years worth of phases. The committee is looking to move forward with putting that in the 22-23 budget process. I've included the pictures of the classroom, copies of all the phases, what each phase involves, with a 20% markup for the cost of supplies, as COVID has kind of turned that market upside down. And I look forward to any questions.
Ed? I mean, where did we get these quotes from? Like, was it from Fisher or was it from an actual?
No, they were from actual contractors. We went out and spoke with several contractors to get just a rough idea of each individual section for siding, each individual door, each individual window. And again, this is just siding, doors, windows, nothing to do with roofs at this point. So that will need to be a future thought.
And that was recent figures?
This was in October, November, while we were waiting for the study to be completed.
We may want to get updated figures given the cost of lumber and everything.
Right. Which was why we initially,
is enough.
Yeah, we went forward with throwing a 20% increase on top of what we had gotten. But we've been kicking this number around for a few months now as we've gone through the meeting process. So I think we can absolutely go back and I would do that, go back before we put this in a budget and make sure we have more accurate numbers, which I'm going to say will probably be more than what I'm presenting, but it started conversations.
Any other questions for Amy?
So I guess, Amy, the committee is asking the board to give us direction to move forward on doing the exterior of the classroom, window replacements, but the majority of it would go into the budget for next year.
Yep, phase one does have the majority of the windows for that classroom section in it. That's the piece of the building that has the most windows, and this phase would take care of that.
So how many of you have taken the opportunity to go down and have a tour? Okay.
So it looks like, is it just me that's been down there?
I've been around.
Okay.
I've been around.
Yeah, so it was very informative when we met, but at this point, the committee can't make the decisions. It has to come the direction from the school board. So we thought at best to aim with building costs being so high to at least do what we could manage with the outside maintenance and windows and such, and then do it in chunks until building costs become more reasonable.
Does anyone have? Oh. Didn't we go through this last year where one-time expenses need to be on a warrant article versus in the school budget? Didn't last year we go through this when we were looking at the school budget, that one-time expenses like this need to be a warrant article put in that plan versus being in the school budget?
Is there a way to increase your volume? Because I really have a hard time hearing from this end.
Want to use mine?
She's asking if one-time expenditures need to be. She's asking if one-time expenditures need to be put on a separate warrant article versus being put in the general fund budget. And to that, I would say if it's a repair of an item that we already own, how would that be any different than the capital or not the capital, but the repairs that we do to the buildings?
Great. Well, I get. Is that better? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. I guess that with the capital improvement plans, this to me speaks capital improvement plan versus putting it in the school budget, because it's quite an expenditure, even if we did it in phases. And I think that the community also needs to know how dilapidated this building is.
And I think to echo Nin's point, I think what I struggle with the Meadows in general is perhaps we need to host a community-wide walkthrough and garner sort of the community's interest in this committee beyond just the scope of what the committee exists now. Because I think to me, I want sort of a strategic plan for what is the grand plan for that area and what buildings are worth salvaging, if any. What is the grand plan for athletics and otherwise down there? And I just don't think that there's community interest yet in this project, because I don't think people, it's just sort of, we inherited this from, it was a gift to the town years ago, and I think people see it and drive by it, but there's just so much to it. And before we invest the funds, I feel like there's an opportunity to re-engage
so the pieces
the
that we're talking about now is, we did look as we took our walk through, is that the classroom area is going to be our primary focus. But for now, because of building costs, we need to get the windows replaced and the outside maintenance done. And then the side piece that has the best foundation, that is really in great shape, we were looking at putting the bathrooms there because we have easy access to tie into the sewer line there. And they wouldn't require digging or anything because there's so much headspace in the basement. Some of the buildings we can't really tear down until we can afford to build the new locker rooms, which we can't do, which then, I agree, the whole thing has to go into the CIP so we can plan. But if we don't, because it has sat and been turned over so many years where we don't do anything, we have to do something. And we do have the ability to do that small maintenance because that classroom is a valuable space to us.
So Karen, this memo says that phase one is going to be in the 22-23 budget. So I think we have enough time before we get to the budget time in October to garner some public input on that.
Right, we just, the committee can't make the decision to move forward. We need the board's guidance to say, yes, this is what we're gonna do. So you're right on the right track because we have a meeting and then we go, well, this really has to be a board vote. So now we're saying, okay, to the board, you need to tell us what you want us to do.
Does anyone on the board have input on what we want to ask the committee to do?
Yes, we need the board to vote to say, yes, we agree to do the outside maintenance on and the windows for phase one, right, Amy? That's what we're looking at.
That is, yep. And there'll be a future conversation regarding, there is a lot of activity as far as wanting to do improvements on the fields, wanting to do improvements to the grounds. Outside vendors that would have loved to donate bleachers and fences and benches and power, and the idea of storage is going to come back around again, and the building is, it depends on your opinion on if you would feel it's safe enough to put storage into. So all of these topics kind of all swirl around that property.
Quick, Karen, you mentioned locker room project. Are we talking about this locker room project at this school here?
No, there are there is, I wouldn't really call it a locker room. I think it's where they used to keep the cows, but it's an area where the football teams or the soccer teams and the opposing team can go and change and have their equipment. And we had talked about eventually making them real locker rooms, but we do have to stay focused on the one here. That's our big project, but that's in the back of the building that we probably would eventually tear down, but you can't tear down if we don't have a place to put it in the meantime. So some of it, this is going to be a multi-year project, but we have to start somewhere. And every year we go, we're not doing it. So now we said, well, at least if we can get the windows replaced so they're energy efficient, they're not falling out and they can be opened, and that we take care of the outside maintenance so we don't have critters moving in. That's the biggest piece at this point. kids should be able to use the classroom down there and be able to have open windows and such.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear because I knew
yes, it wasn't this one.
This
and that one.
locker room project is in the capital improvement plan,
Yeah.
and I was just a little
Yeah,
confused.
that's okay. That's okay. I asked as a board that we take a tour and invite Wilmington board if they'd like to come too with us and have a tour, because you really have to be inside to see where things are.
Sure. So obviously we have that classroom down there, so that's something that we have to contend with. So I'm acknowledging that. But I'm looking at this and I'm looking at, you know, we're told this thing's not even structurally sound, and we're going to start putting $104,000 into it. What happens if we go to replace those windows and all the sills are rotted? Now, I mean, to me, I don't know. I know I'm coming onto this late, and this has been going on for a long time, this project. I just don't see it as, I see this throwing good money after bad. I think we're going to be spending a lot of money down there for a school that has seen declining enrollment over the last decade. And I'm very hesitant to want to invest a lot of money in down there. Now, I acknowledge the other piece of this classroom. How do we remedy that? That's where I'm at. So I definitely will come take a tour. I've been around the outside of the building. I know what it looks like. I know it's been sitting idly for a long time, and that's what happens to buildings. They start to decay. So again, we get into structural issues. I mean, we could be talking millions before this is over. I don't think that millions of dollars worth of investment is necessarily a sound fiscal move. Again, just my opinion. So
what year is the building?
I don't know, but there's pictures.
There's several pieces to it, so I guess it would depend on which piece you are in. I don't have the history of the building in front of me, but I know we're talking early 1900s.
And how many windows in phase one? And doors?
I apologize. I don't have a list of exact numbers to do. My floor plan doesn't show then the windows, but there's at least, I don't know, would you say half a dozen?
Oh, there you are.
Thank you, Ken.
Ken, when you, if you don't mind, Gretchen.
Your mic's not on.
Hit it wrong. When you were checking out those windows, did you notice any rot around the sill? Okay.
And that's my concern. You tear into an old building, you always find more stuff. You're going to find rot. You're going to find all sorts of things that aren't to code that we're going to have to bring up to code. And again, we have to deal with that classroom and those kids, and that's important. What can we do to come up with an alternative possibly? But for one classroom of, what is it? Is it 10 kids to spend? We don't even know how much money we're going to be spending. And I know hopefully the lumber futures will start coming down more, but I mean, it's $8.80 for a 2x4 right now. So, I mean, I know this is for the 2022-23 budget process, and that hopefully building costs will come down by then. But then again, when the costs ever come down, right, we're going to see inflation before. So again, I'm just trying to have this conversation outwardly. You know, I don't want to come out of nowhere and blindside anybody. Again, I'm one of the newer members here, so I wasn't here when this was all started. I don't know all those, you know, the ins and outs, but I'm just coming in and looking at these numbers and just saying, wow, this is a big cost for, you know, again, a school that's been declining in enrollment for a decade. So I have concerns, especially being how old the building is, and that, yeah, this just addresses the outside, but we're also talking about the roof trusses need to be replaced.
No, not need to, was suggested. Oh. And I think when we had our meeting, that roof has been there, is that anything we do on the outside now, when we beef up that roof in the future, will not affect what we've done already, right? If we decided that that roof could be a second project. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably a couple $100,000 just to, you know, I mean, so I think there's a lot of numbers that aren't even here yet. And ones that if we start digging into this, we're going to find more dollars. And again,
So that's why we said the board needs to give us direction because we keep coming up with plans, but
Yeah,
we
no, and it's
can't
commendable
have
what
the
you guys have done, and I know it's been going on for years. I'm not the board, I'm 20% of the board. My opinion would be to not move forward with any of this and to look for alternatives for this classroom.
Is this quote for labor and material?
Yes.
Yeah, she said yes.
Kurt.
I just wondered also about if we're not doing anything to the building at all. We do have sports teams down there. We have a football team down there, and we have our both lacrosse teams down there. Not to mention that community football, which is a feeder program to our high school, and community lacrosse, which is a feeder program. How do we manage those teams in that space? Because football certainly needs a locker room. That's one of the requirements when we play football games down there, is a locker room for officials. And certainly that's where right now all of our football equipment is housed, and that locker room is used by the football team. So what do we do with the football team as well as the lacrosse teams, I guess? And again, it is something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to do something for them, because if you've been in the building or around the building, you know it is in disrepair down there.
And Kerry, those are absolutely valid points. What do we do with those teams? But just because we have to do something doesn't mean we just do this. I think, again, this building, I'm very weary of starting to dump lots of money into a building that has been dilapidated. I mean, the thing's falling apart. I mean, so again, I'm not trying to necessarily do anything down there. I just don't see this as something that appeals to me or the people that I then have to go back to and explain and say, hey, listen, yeah, you know, we have to do something. This was the concept. Okay, well, did we have to, or is there other options available? I don't know. And I'm not even saying tonight I have those answers. I'm just saying that this scares the crap out of me, knowing what happens when you start tearing into an old building. So, again, my opinion, one vote.
And I think Kyle is echoing what I said maybe 2 or 3 meetings ago related to all of this stuff. And I guess, and again, I think it had been brought up at that meeting, but I said at that meeting, shame on me, I've never been to one of those Meadows committee meetings, and I was able to go to one right after, but I wasn't able to make the most recent one. But I think where I'm at is, I think the action item for our board is to have some sort of community walkthrough of that facility as one, to try and engender and bring all of the people to the table that have a stake in this. Lacrosse, Lakes Region Football, LRU, all these folks that want to use these facilities, and try and get some new life on that committee, because I think that committee has sort of been working on its own for a while without a real community effort. So this is a reality we have to deal with, this dilapidated building. But I agree, I live in an old house, you touch and try and replace one window, 12 other things fall apart. So I don't trust any of these numbers are going to be real. So I'd like to get the stakeholders there, get a group of folks together that have skin in the game, that want to see something happen down there. And then 2, from there, have them make a plan that maybe makes more sense based on what the priorities are for that facility. And I understand that our hands are tied related to, in the past, we've used that one building that we're talking about replacing or fixing. We've used that in the past as a classroom space, and it's worked well, but we didn't use it this past year. So can we get creative and try and, again, put it out to the community? Is there another space somewhere that we could use for the time being? But that would be my action item. Instead of kicking the ball down the field, pun intended, let's set a date and put it out to the public to have some sort of, and invite all those stakeholders there to get everyone engaged, to make a plan that makes sense for the here and now, versus trying to use make those buildings work for what we need versus maybe just starting anew, is my thought.
Yeah, and I agree 100%. And you bring up a really good point that I just thought of. So there's other stakeholders, right? There's other teams that use. How come they can't chip some money in? How about they start going to make a fundraising campaign? Why does it have to fall on the taxpayers? I guess is where I'm getting at. If other teams are using it and enjoying those benefits of having that, well, then they should be ponying up. It shouldn't just fall on the taxpayers. So I think having a community discussion is a phenomenal idea to get everybody involved and say, hey, listen, this is what is the goal, right? Collectively, and then figure that out. And then we can reassess where we're at. So yeah, I agree 100%.
Just one thing from down here. Sorry, I know, and Jonna wants to jump in too. She's been trying to. But if you are going to invite or make room for new committee members from outside of your board and your building, I know that it's premature on our new area agreement that we're not supposed to have committee representation until 2023. But if you're inviting some outside stakeholders, I would ask that you invite a Gilmanton board member as well on that, because it sounds like a longer term project that it will eventually hit 2023. And then I'll turn it over to Jonna.
So I just want some clarification. I feel bad because I know this committee does all this work.
Can you speak into your mic?
Okay. So I just want a clarification because I feel bad that the committee does all this work. They come to us every month, and then you've been doing this. A lot of people have been involved in this over the years. And so we met with lots of scary numbers the first, a couple months ago. Then we looked at the bathroom project. And I guess I'm trying to balance. I completely agree with a bigger committee, more help. That stuff takes time. And I think this is a big enough project that we have time to get the committee, other stakeholders involved. This is not a couple $100,000. This is millions of dollars. And so I'm trying to balance doing that effort without delaying stuff that needs to get done because we keep every month not doing anything. So I guess my question is, for this 105,000, I think that you're asking to do like phase one, is that money wasted? I mean, the work is going to be of value regardless of what we do or what any committee does with the building. So it's not lost investment. I guess that's what I'm trying to understand. Yeah. And that maybe we just start doing something instead of waiting and waiting.
Great. It is the front half of the building that you see when you pull in. There's a schematic, a floor plan, if you will, on the back of your presentation that shows this section of phase one. And it is the building that you see when you pull in. So it's kind of the curb appeal, as well as the windows for that classroom, which we weren't able to use this year because of lack of ventilation. So it would kind of start to aid in that classroom usage.
It would only be a waste if you were going to tear the building down.
Correct.
That's the struggle.
Correct.
Can you repeat that, Adam? I didn't quite hear.
I said it would only be a waste if you tear the building down, which is
correct.
That I don't know that that's off the table entirely. I guess that's the question. So.
I don't know if it's off the table, but at our last meeting when we received just the price tag for doing a locker room with a second story for storage, that was over the $1 million marker. I want to say 1.25, if I remember correctly, Amy, and you can totally
No, it was over $1 million. Yeah.
And that was just for that. That didn't include a classroom. It did include bathrooms and a concession stand, but it was really just basically a sports building. It didn't address the other needs. So I think it's important to start at kind of ground zero and look at all of those options, because as Kyle pointed out, and I might know a guy, and Nin pointed out too, construction costs right now are growing astronomically overnight. And so we're looking at something that's going into the 22-23 budget. And I don't think that we can really target 105,000 for the phase one. I think that number changes dramatically by the time we look at budgets in October.
So does anyone want to make a motion on action to be taken? Well, I think the committee's looking for some sort of action from the board.
Gretchen, can I just?
Yes, go ahead.
Just a question. Who's managing the committee? I guess whose responsibility is it to manage the committee?
We can't really hear you that well down here, Jonna.
Is that better? Oh, that's better. I was just wondering who's responsible for the committee? Whose role? Is it a board or is it a completely separate?
I don't know. Is that a
that committee is a subcommittee of the school board. So there's a generally Amy, myself, and Ken are present. There's also the athletic director that has been present, as well as the football coach and the a representative from the younger football team, and a school board member. At least one school board member has been involved, and a community member. So there's definitely been a lot of different players at the table. Talking about a direction, it sounds like the direction to me is to have a community either walk through, but certainly bringing people together, and the soccer, the lacrosse, the football groups together to develop what is the goal down here, what are we going to do, and what are our next steps. I think the thing we're struggling with is still the classroom, but it sounds like
and that classroom is important. It's an alternative classroom. So there's not always 10 students in it. It rotates during the day, and it's for kids that may not be able to be in the school. They do have, you know me. I was like, what do you mean they're not in the school? So they start out their day here, and maybe 1 or 2 classes they take down there, and then they come back here and they're with their peers. Maybe they're kids that are need just 1 credit, so they don't need to be here all day, so they can go there, do their credit, maybe credit recovery, it may be catch up, it may be about situations that are just very sensitive and they just cannot be in this building. So by keeping the number at that 10, I think it's 10 people total, correct, Amy?
12 with the 2 teachers.
And the 2 teachers. We do have a waiver permit to do it without having to have all of the safety things. But I think that it's important. When I saw the pictures that were given to us, they did show like worst case scenarios, real scary place. Once you're in there and you actually get to see, there's a lot more stability to not the whole building, but the pieces that we need to salvage than you thought. And I said, it's ridiculous to try to build anew when the bones of the building are pretty strong. And just like an old house, yes, I know sometimes we have to do this and that, but we will never be able to afford to build a whole new complex down there. That will not happen. And we're never going to have a sports complex out here on this field with turf and billboards and 400 stadium seating and all that. And that alternative was a great idea, but it also put us behind because we took our eye off the ball on this project. Well, we focused on something that I would never support destroying our village field for that. So this is why the committee had the tour, got our answers. We're really surprised that the inside is pretty good and that we have something we can work with. Not immediately because we know of the building costs, but for future planning. But there's some stuff we have to do so that it doesn't increase going into phase 2, 3, and 4. But we need guidance from the board because we keep meeting going, yeah, we can do this. We don't have the authority to say, yes, we can go spend the money. So the board needs to stand, say, okay, we want you to go forward with phase 1 and we're going to look at this, or we need to go back and relook at phase 1. And do we walk away? I mean, these are the decisions because we don't have that authority as a committee.
Well, given that it sounds like I'm the only one besides you that's actually done a walkthrough down there, I don't think that the board should really vote to invest funds down there before we've actually seen it. Would be,
and I did
think,
see the email Kirk had asked that members do together.
Yep.
I would prefer that we do it together because every time we split up and do it, then we come back with more questions because this one didn't see that and this one, and it's really nice having him there to help because he's just able to answer questions, and Amy's another very important person to have there with us.
So could we set up something, a walkthrough of sorts that includes the community and the Gilmanton board especially?
I think we
Is
talked
something
about
like that
with
can
our work session, having our work sessions. We used to have our work sessions for the summer down at the Meadows in the classroom.
So maybe our summer work session can start with a walkthrough. Oh, go ahead.
Just a reminder, the summer work session is scheduled at the same time as our Gilmanton board meeting. So if we were to do that, I would ask that it be moved to a different night.
Good point.
But I agree, it should be posted as a work session because it now has quorum.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
Can we do that with the board meeting? There's could you just hold on until the next public comment? Thank you. We're almost there, yeah. So do we have enough action to be taken for the committee as far as?
So when are the work sessions, Kirk? Because if Gilmanton asked that we change it, we've got to look at our calendars.
Our work session is scheduled in July. I forget the exact date of that.
No.
I don't think it's a Friday.
I don't think so. Board meeting is that night, Michelle? Okay, so Gilmanton has asked that we change that night if we could.
Can we move it to the 14th, the very next night?
Works for me. Does that work for you, July 14th?
It doesn't work.
It doesn't work for Kirk, it looks like.
Audra's okay with it.
I do think we have a meeting scheduled for August. We could do an August. I think Gilmanton will be part of the August meeting. Is that correct? We could do it at that first. I think it's
first Monday is August 2nd.
Kirk, would you suggest having it like an hour or so before the meeting and then resuming our meeting here afterwards, just so that it wouldn't be confusing for the public to be able to come in?
Yeah, we could start at 5 o'clock down on August 2nd at the Meadows and walk through for an hour and then meet back here at 6 o'clock.
Yeah, and then that would lead us into a nice discussion, I think, afterwards, maybe.
But then are we doing a separate time for community walkthrough?
Well, that work session could be open to the public as well, right? That could happen at the same time.
At that 5 o'clock on
Yeah.
August 2nd, we could certainly, it would be a posted meeting anyway.
Yeah.
So we could certainly invite public to that as well.
Okay.
My only concern with that is that we probably wouldn't make it back here for 6 o'clock to have a regular posted board meeting.
Yes. I think if we have a set time, we can do the walkthrough, and I mean, I think an hour is plenty of time to walk that space, or 45 minutes even.
As long as conversations are kept to a minimum.
Right.
we found that when we had our committee meeting.
We could start it at 4:30.
4:30?
Well, could we just open up the building for community members to walk through at 4:30, even if we get there at 5?
Yep. Yeah. Like Amy and I could be down there at 4:30 for entertaining community members. Okay. And then at 5 o'clock, board members could come.
Good idea.
All right. All set, Amy? Thank you.
Thanks, Amy.
All right. One of these days we'll have a 2-hour meeting. Policies for first reading. Kirk, you want to go with that? You want me to do those? Like,
oh, I can get here. First policy, BGAA. This is policy development, adoption, and review. This is a sample policy from the School Boards Association. And this is something that we do, there's some changes on it. The bolded languages are changes that the policy committee is recommending. BGA is a policy that we currently have, and that's the policy that the policy committee is suggesting withdrawing. Policy BGA-P, the policy committee is also suggesting to withdraw. Policy BGE, policy dissemination, the policy committee is also suggesting to withdraw. Again, all of those policies are contained in the new policy BGAA. And then policy BAAA, school board policies and administrative procedures. This is a policy that we do not have in our policy handbook or policy manual at this time. It is a policy that the policy committee is recommending that we do have in our policy manual. And on the second side, under exceptions, letter C, there was an addition. The bold language there is the addition from the policy committee.
I just had a couple of questions, or does anyone have any questions? I'll ask mine last. On the first one, on the second page, number 2, I was curious, what did I write? It was related to on matters of unusual or unexpected urgency, the board may waive the second meeting limitation and take immediate action to adopt a new policy or revise. Like, I was curious how that would work and what the wherewithal would be, because to me, we always need to have some sort of public hearing related to a policy. And who would deem, I'm on page, the policy development and adoption review one.
Yep.
Oh, on, sorry, page 4 of 4. I'm sorry.
Okay.
The number 2 at the top of page 4 of 4. I didn't really understand how that would work in practice, because policies should get a public hearing. And if it just had, and I was curious what, who would deem something urgent and what that urgency would be and how that.
So during our August 4th meeting, I think it was this past year on August 4th, 2020, there were some policy changes that the board made at that meeting. And so the board did take action and make those changes similar to the open campus policy. And the board did it for 1 year. So they did take that immediate action. It wasn't something that they went through the policy committee to have 2 readings and take that due diligence of 2 months to pass that policy.
Okay. So it was kind of related to a global pandemic was the urgency. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I was just curious on the reason for adding that BAA one. Because there's something that came up that required us to have that.
Think there was anything that came up specifically to require us to have that policy. It is a policy that we do not have right now. I believe it's recommended by the School Boards Association, and it does differentiate the differences between the school board policies and then administrative procedures. And so those are, I think, things that we wanted to just make sure that we're clarifying for administrators as well as teachers and staff.
Does anyone else have any questions on the first reading of those policies? All right, on to our second public comment.
I just had a really quick question about.
Can you just say your name and again, just
yeah,
so
sure. Kristin Marshall, Knollwood Drive.
Yep.
I know you have listed the Zoom and the phone number to listen to these at home. And I know in a few meetings past, comments were given, I guess, through the computer and someone would read them aloud, but I haven't heard anything at the last 2 or 3 meetings where anybody from, is anybody from home commenting on it?
You know what, that's a good point. And thank you for making note of that to me. That's my error for not asking during public comment if there was any on there. So,
okay, thank you.
But thank you for bringing that up. I think we did check at the last 2, but I have not asked tonight, so double check. Thank you for bringing that. While we're checking on that, Skip.
Sure. Skip Shea, Gilford Glen Road. Given the seriousness of the mask discussion earlier, I felt that perhaps a little levity should be injected. Over at redstate.com, there's this post stating Philadelphia's naked bike ride returns, but to prevent the spread of germs, nudists will have to wear masks. Can you imagine how that mask on, mask off meeting went? Thought I'd at least get it. All right. A couple of questions. Policy JBAB. My last set of right to know requests had to do with section C, names and pronouns. And after Nin and I had a back and forth at a policy meeting where I was told that she felt threatened when I said I would take the board to court, and I said I felt threatened because my elected representatives were not following the law. Section C was basically removed so that the coerced speech, which was against First Amendment rights, was removed. But there is still a little problem, and I'm looking for clarification. It has now been reduced to 1 sentence. A student under this policy should be addressed by a name or pronoun that corresponds to the student's gender identity that is consistently asserted at school. My question is the word should be used in the voluntary sense? Yeah, you should do it, but we can't force you. Or is it being used in the imperative, which means you shall do this, which was really going back to the coerced speech. So I was hoping that somebody could clarify that, and perhaps in the policy itself, in parentheses, either say mandatory or voluntary, so that people would understand when they read it, because it is subject to redefinition by the person. So that was one thing. Going back to our earlier discussion of seeking redress from my elected representatives. My last right to know has to do with basically, let's see, the policy JBAB part 3, section A, privacy. And it comes down to the same principle that the section C did earlier. We are not a home rule state. Any board or any subdivision of the state in a home rule environment can do anything that they want on almost any subject that they want, but we're not that. We are a Dillon's rule state, which means that all subdivisions of the state, of which school boards are one, must be authorized by legislation or the legislature creating legislation in order to have the power. Governments have powers, individuals have rights to be able to do anything. I had submitted an RTK going through the privacy because it seems like you have the power to give a minor child a new right that is not enumerated anywhere. So I am questioning that. And that's when I got the return from Superintendent Beitler that basically said nothing at all, where I tossed the papers into the air because he had decided to give me a new name. and none of that paperwork answered my specific questions. So let me repeat, are we going to play this game all over again? Neither of the two documents attached that Beitler sent in response to my most recently submitted right to know demand answered my actual questions. Throwing answers from someone else's right to know demand that don't pertain to mine is both insulting and starting yet another pattern of not acting according to the law. Avoidance of direct questions, throwing non-responsive verbiage as if it was chaff is both unacceptable and a display of slothfulness, or worse, a display of disrespect. It does not reflect well on the board, having delegated this work to your subordinate. So I asked that my right to know be resubmitted and taken under review. I have not yet had a return from that, and I asked that question back in on May 11th. The 5 business days, according to RSA 91A, have well passed. So my question would be, and this would be something you probably will take up on your own, but when am I going to get a response? Again, the board is not following the law. The actual part is lying to parents as far as privacy is concerned. Transgender and gender nonconforming students have the right. Again, do you have the power to grant a right? I would maintain that you don't, because we are a Dillon's rule state. To discuss and express their gender identity and expression openly, and to decide when and with whom and how much to share private information. When contact, and this is the part that you just cannot accept a new policy from the New Hampshire School Board Association and automatically assume, oh, this has been legally cleared. Because as it was Section C, it wasn't. And it's not. It was unconstitutional. And I'm very happy that you guys changed it. I really am. When contacting the parent or guardian of a transgender or non-conforming student, school personnel should use the student's legal name and pronouns corresponding to the student's gender assigned at birth. Well, assigned at birth, you don't assign somebody's sex at birth. It's derived from conception. I would appreciate using the right verbiage on that. But still, what goes on is that you are basically lying to parents, either by commission, by deliberate action, or omission, by refusing to act at all. I would maintain that this would be contested in the courts. In fact, it already is, as illegal. My right to know was asking, where does this school board derive the power to lie to parents? The answer, if there is such, would simply be to merely point to that New Hampshire RSA that says, yes, you can do that. The flip side of this is that you cannot do it because you cannot show anyone what legislative action, what RSA gives you that power. Therefore, by that dint, you cannot do this part of the privacy area. So I am going to ask that my RTK be reinstated and that you show that you have the power to give a new right to a minor child and not keep the parents in the loop. I understand that schools are in part in loco parentis, but to cut them out of the loop as if they are guilty of something already, where that minor child is going through a traumatic time in their life, to automatically assume that parents are guilty, that's beyond the pale. So I expect that within 5 business days, I will have an answer to my question. Now, somebody brought up the email. I filed that right to know for the email log from the district because Superintendent Kirk said there has been no communication whatsoever. I find that extremely hard and difficult to believe. So if you've ended up with 250,000 responsive records after I restated my original right to know of, this is what I'm looking for. and then stated, here's the way to go about doing it. And nobody called me to ask, hey, Skip, this is getting a little out of bounds. Can you help us out here? I would have been glad to have done it, but nobody bothered. Now the question is, who's at fault for that? Silence, just the rain.
Well, I just like to make some mention to that because I have had conversations with other board members as well as Superintendent Beitler about this issue. I thought I remember in our last correspondence that went out that we had responded to him, that we had told him you had gotten a response, maybe not the answers you were looking for, but you did get a response from the district.
I got an email with 2 PDFs, one of which was addressed to a Mr. Shea that I went through.
No, the second one.
Answers.
Unless I'm miscrossing signals
the second
here.
one being
the emails that you requested.
I have not heard a word.
Okay, so maybe I misinterpreted. I
Other
thought I
than
read in one
they're
of our...
working on it, but this is the
Okay.
first time I have heard somebody, Gretchen, I don't know whether it was you or Janine, somebody said 250,000 records. That's the first I've heard of this.
I'm confident that Mr. Beitler sent you an email letting you know that we're working on that right to know request, correct?
I got the working on it part, but not the, oh my gosh, what is this doing? You could have asked me to say, look, is this really what you wanted? And at 250,000 records, that's nuts. The filter, just on a statistical basis, I don't think you would have been able to come across with more than 2 to 3% of being responsive records to what I was looking for. Given the intent of the original RTK, which I asked because I didn't get an answer, to resubmit. And the email log request was due to that non-responsive reply that I got from Superintendent Kirk. Now, Brenda runs a tight ship. She is a treasure for this district. I will be happy to talk with her. So as she goes through the Office 365 stuff again, or to be able to pare down the interim stuff that she's got now, I'd be happy to do that. Like I've said before, I'm semi-retired. I don't have anything better to do. I can do this. But if you sent me the 250,000, fine, I'll stuff it on my server and I'll go through it myself. But it's kind of nuts if you guys are still rolling through and getting more records. But it really comes down to, with all of that being secondary or tertiary, the important part is when you see these policies being rolled out, you need to ask as board members, don't depend on the staff, take your legal counsel with several grains of salt, but look at this policy and say, war game it. How could this go wrong? What is going wrong with respect to the legal authority that the board has? You folks already said, you can't spend all this money on the windows. You don't have the legal authority to do that. When it comes to your policies, the same thing happens. You can only do what a subdivision of the state is allowed to do by authorizing legislation. That's basic civics. This is not a secret here. If you look at the policies and go, does this violate the Constitution? Does this violate legislation? You can't do it. So why plow ahead with it? Any questions of me about this rant?
No questions from us. Thank you for your input once again.
Thank you.
Just before Jill steps up, if anybody has their windows down, I don't know if you're paying attention, that it is pouring. I have an open Jeep out there.
I'm taking it. Jill DeRusso, Gilford Ave. So I just wanted to say thank you. I probably am a bad PTA member because I've only come to 2 of these things. And I think as president, you're supposed to come to a couple more. So I promise to be better next year. And I just want to thank you guys. I know some of you had sleepless nights and it was a really crappy year and you guys kicked butt. So very glad you had to deal with it and not me. But I just wanted to make a recommendation for next year. My son had 2 or 3 quarantines this year, and my daughter had 3. So not a big deal, totally get the quarantine thing, 100% on board with it. The only recommendation I have is most of the time it was great. If the entire cohort or the entire class was in quarantine, it was wonderful. The teacher was right there, all was well. You know, they had the Google Meets and they had their assignments and they talked to their teacher and there was all kinds of communication. The problem was when my son tested positive and we all ended up getting it, but our tests claimed that myself, my husband, and my daughter didn't get it. That put my daughter in a 20-day quarantine. That was 9 instructional days missed, would have been 14, luckily or unluckily for us, it was during April vacation. So she did, she already missed those 5 days. The problem was she emailed all her teachers. I'm the mom at home going, email your teachers, email your teachers. I know not every mom is like that. We got responses, oh, I hope you feel better. I hope you don't get it, all the great things. Math, she got wonderful assignments. A lot of her other teachers, she's a 5th grader. A lot of her other teachers she got check the website. Fantastic, but it wasn't updated. So my daughter spent the 9 days of her instructional time. She probably had half hour, 45 minutes worth of work, and she missed all of that schoolwork. Now my daughter's a great student, top of her, whatever. She's not a slacker kid. She loves learning. She was mad at me for dismissing her yesterday. So my recommendation for the district is when you're doing your staffing and planning for next year, my understanding is there is no remote next year, which is great. But maybe having a liaison or one staff member who, when it's not the whole cohort and there's one kid in 8th grade and there's one 5th grader, they're not all gonna have parents like me who are like, did you call them? Did you call them? Did you hound them? So maybe having one person who they could reach out to, who could be the liaison between all the teachers, because some of her assignments were get the word of the day. Well, it was written on the board. That's super helpful. She wasn't there for 14 days. So that's just my recommendation. I know we don't need to hire all the remote teachers, but maybe hiring one remote person or liaison or something to that for all the districts. I mean, or all the schools. I don't know how you'd work it out, but that was my only recommendation. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? All right. Come on up.
Just Jade Wood, Chestnut Drive, Gilford, New Hampshire. I would like to know if the memorandum of agreement was made public to any parents. And if not, because I couldn't find it on the SAU webpage, perhaps it should be in the future, you know, because this is a lot of information that affected us. And we put a lot of emphasis on trust and our relationships with you. And we want transparency. I mean, privacy is for citizens, transparency is for government. And so I would just caution you to be a little more discerning when you don't make this information public for people. Other than that, thank you so much for all of your patience with me tonight. I'm gonna go celebrate my birthday.
Thank you. And I'd just like to close this meeting before we go to public, to non-public, just thanking the full board that's here tonight for this last year, and kind of you've sat through numerous meetings like this, as we should. Everyone at these tables, I think without fail, has skin in this game, whether we have students, we have kids, grandkids, otherwise, everyone I think works full-time as well. Everyone really does their very best to be as transparent and responsive as we can. We're not perfect. And I think the the passion that people bring to these meetings is important, and we respect it and are happy to have it. But also we hope, just like we try and offer all of you, that you offer us some grace in moments that we might not have hit it out of the park because we are just doing our best. And so I think, as you hear, when we get some of these public comments, when we deal with each other with assuming a little good faith in one another, I think it goes a long way, and it helps us to want to do better and be more responsive when we kind of treat each other with mutual respect. So I'll just close with that. Whoops, we do have a comment online.
So Ms. Wood had emailed earlier this morning about getting a copy of the agenda. This is only monitored in the evening during the school board session. So if you want to email me directly, I'll email you a agenda in the future. It is on the front page of the website, and Kim can always get a copy of that for you as well.
We have a second meeting after this. Yeah. And I want to just make note, I'm not sure if it's still happening, but for a while the principals were sending out the school board agendas in their weekly emails whenever we had those. So always look for those in the emails as well, because they should be attached. And if they aren't, let us know.
Yep, I'll make sure, I'll talk to the principals and make sure that they are. Yep. One other public input from Angela Clifford to the Gilford School Board. Please consider the viewpoints of these concerned parents, not so much the number of signatures, but the deep feelings as well as the research that each family has done. Please make masks optional right now and don't wait until 2021 school year. It will take so much work emotionally for these children to overcome the past year and be comfortable and safe going maskless. Start now. Please also consider how Gilford schools affect other businesses and their policies in our community. Please end this now. This is not the best practice. Children are not high-risk carriers and have non-threatening symptoms when tested positive. We already see evidence of long-lasting psychological trauma and effects. This has to end, and you have Gilford in your hands. End it now. That's it.
Did I get a motion to go into non-public?
I'll make a motion to go into non-public pursuant to RSA 91-A, semicolon 3, numeral 2, section C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely and reputation of any person other than a member of this board, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Second, is there a second? Okay, roll call to go into non-public.
Kelly.
Yes. Gandini, yes.
Heyman, yes.
McKenna, yes.
The Gilford reps will stay for this. The other members are going to go set up for our meeting.
Thank you.
All I heard was adjourn. I was like,
we are calling to order the school board meeting for the Gilford School District. This is the follow-up to our joint Gilford and Gilmanton meeting. This is just related to our elementary and middle school. Could I get a certificate of posting?
Yes, the meeting was posted online as well as at the schools.
Okay. Does anyone oppose to deferring the pledge because we already did it earlier tonight? No? All right. Next up is the approval of minutes for the May 3rd meeting.
I'll motion to approve the minutes from May 3rd.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is that in there? Okay, I couldn't see you. I just want to make sure.
Thank you.
Right.
I just have a couple of things on the first page after the 54,000. That should be budgeted, not budged. And then on page 4, the open campus is 325 to 275, and that should be 267.
I saw you looking at that. I actually was curious about that, to be honest. The number seemed lower in this month than I remembered it to be. Did they say 275 at last month's meeting?
No, it was 267.
It was, okay. Any other adjustments to the minutes? All those in favor as the minutes as approved, as amended? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, that passes. Superintendent's report. Oh, public comment, sorry. There's no public here. Anything online?
Nothing online.
All right, no being public comment, we'll close that. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. So under student learning, our both schools, middle school and elementary school, have advertised summer enrichment opportunities for students. And we have also expanded the summer academic offerings at the middle school and our Title I programming at the elementary school for academics as well. This is hopefully going to support student learning as we prepare for the 21-22 school year. Danielle, Peter, and I have had several conversations about K-8 literacy work this summer, and we're planning on offering that type of workshop or professional development for our teachers, our K-8 teachers this summer. Focus would be word, work, and reading. Also under families and communities on May 28th, Governor Sununu issued a new emergency order extending the state of emergency through June 11th, 2021. My understanding is he's going to allow that to sunset and not extend it beyond June 11th. The Gilford School Board has been meeting in person, which again, if Governor Sununu allows the emergency order to sunset, boards would need to start meeting in person. Again, we've been doing that. We've been providing remote access to the public. This could be an opportunity or a time to let go of that remote access for public and just have regular in-person school board meetings if the board so desired to have that. We have had some participation remotely, but it's been pretty limited, I'd say, in the last few meetings. Under resource management, we've provided a spreadsheet in your packet, and this is the ESSER II grant money. And so we would like to review that. There's quite a bit of information in there. People can talk to different parts of it. I can run through it and absolutely get feedback and try to answer questions. And if I can't answer them, hopefully Jay or Amy or Anthony or Peter or Danielle can answer them. So on the first page, it's that's technology, iVision's portal. So that's part of our update for our financial software. And we have been pre-approved to put this in the grant for $21,000. So that's a part of it. And again, Amy can answer questions about that. Live scan fingerprinting machine. So this is to do fingerprints, but it would be a live scan fingerprinting machine, obviously. So we wouldn't have to actually ink people's hands. The person or people who are doing the fingerprints don't have to have contact with the person who's doing their fingerprints. It would just be kind of scanned under a machine. That's $8,000. Access points for outdoor internet service. And we would put those in different spaces around all three of our buildings so that we could have outside internet access if we have teaching and learning going on outside, but also for different events that we may have outside at the different schools. Chromebooks with licenses. We have seen a little bit of a bump in the price of Chromebooks, but we're looking for approval to buy additional Chromebooks as well. We've put on there how many were budgeted in the next year's 21-22 budget, but then we're looking to add additional Chromebooks as well. Remote instruction equipment. We would look, again, if people have questions, Jay can answer some of this, but a document camera is something that a teacher can use to project a book or a piece of paper up onto the screen, and they can project it onto their Google Meet screen or a Zoom screen or just their screen in their classroom. Computer monitors, this is for teachers for remote instruction. Webcams, these are the cameras for accessing online learning or to do Google Meets or Zoom meetings. Interactive panels to improve instruction. So these are the interactive boards that we put in classrooms. So we do have some budgeted, but this would give us more in each school for the coming year. Middle school camera system. So in our budget, we have a camera system update here at the high school for this coming year. We would look, we've done the elementary school. We would look to do the middle school camera system as well this summer. The picture, the updated camera system, the picture that you see, the resolution, you can identify people from pretty far away with the new camera systems, and that can certainly help if we have to do contact tracing. I'm assuming that we're going to continue to have to do contact tracing. We have not heard anything to the contrary at this time. The high school library AV streaming system, this could be used for school board members, but also for presentations in the high school library. The elementary gym is looking to put an AV projector system in the elementary, high school, and middle school gyms for remote meetings in larger spaces. Page 2, under facilities. Yep.
A school and the district-wide stuff, we're going to need Gilmanton.
The money that is, and I'll lean on you a little bit, Amy, the money that is been allocated, does it include the Gilmanton kids and the Gilford kids?
And that conversation happened after that last meeting between the superintendents. They were able
But we
to
don't need them
that.
to even approve amounts with us. I think that's what I'm asking, not
Right.
necessarily the transfer piece of it, but if we're
It doesn't affect any budget.
It's
just
it is.
It's considered a district. Is it then considered a district-wide?
It is a district-wide allocation, absolutely.
So yeah, I guess just to kind of follow up on what she's saying, because I'm trying to understand myself. So it's district-wide. It includes the students from Gilmington. But obviously the money doesn't come from Gilmington. So what am I trying to say here? I'm just trying to understand this whole thing. We don't need, because you're trying to say they should be part of this conversation, right? And we're saying that because we're including those students in our number, we're not bound to do anything with Gilmington. I guess is what I'm trying to say, legally or even ethically or whatever. Because we're using their number of students in this money, there's nothing that we have to do for them because we're not actually taking the money from them.
It's nothing that we would charge to them. I guess for your conscience, if you want to include them in the conversation, well, that's probably.
I think that's more where I'm leaning because we've had conversations about them not being included previously.
Right.
That I feel that they should have the say.
Right. And then the other point, and so just again, clarification. So because we've included their students in this grant, they wouldn't be losing out on anything, right?
No, they're not losing any. They're not. They didn't. The Department of Education did not take any money from Gilmington and give it to Gilford. The Department of Education takes the total count of our district and allocates the money. And it's based on Title I, I think. And so that's a free and reduced account. Reduced account.
Okay. Yeah, I would feel more comfortable having them involved, just because I think it's that we're using their kids. It's going to obviously bump up the amount that we get, how we spend it. I think they should be part of the conversation. But I just wanted to make sure that they weren't going to be shortchanged in some other area. When they go for a grant and they say, "Oh no, your students were already included in this grant over here." That I just want to make sure nothing like that was going to happen.
No,
okay.
The Department of Education has already kind of ferreted out all of that and made the allocations. So the only thing I'll caution you is it will just delay high school projects or high school items that we have on this list, and I guess district-wide also.
Right. Yeah. No. I hear what you're saying on that. I don't know. What do you? Do you think? I just remember the last conversations too, and that's just what she said it, and it just sparked that in my mind of, okay, yeah, we want to at least be cautious here and make sure that what we're doing, we're not leaving them in the dark.
Yep.
Say in the previous conversation, we said that we were going to break it down and designate the high school stuff so that way they could see that.
I think that, and I'll take ownership that I had this to be a part of this meeting as opposed to the other one.
I think it was supposed to be.
Because as opposed to the district-wide, the joint Gilmanton-Guilford meeting, I made that call perhaps in the wrong because I knew that he had already spoken with the Gilmanton superintendent and they were satisfied that the money was not money that we were going to charge them. So I felt comfortable that as we kind of discussed at the last meeting, this is money that we weren't expecting to get. We were almost looking for projects to include with this. I made that call.
I'm fine if we knock on the door and say, hey, this doesn't affect you, but there's dollar amounts that are in the high school. It doesn't affect you negatively. Do you want to be a part of it or not? Just to give them that option so that we were being fully transparent with them, because I know that that's been an issue in the past.
Asked another way, could we preemptively okay this under the guise sort of like we've done with other things, preemptively say that we'll accept this pending review with the two Gilmanton reps? Could we do that? Just to give that levity? Yep. Or leeway. So
no problem. Great.
It's a good point.
Good points. Thank you.
Another example of me making the wrong call.
Phase 2, air handling filter change. We'd like to do one additional change of air filters in the 22-23 school year. The things shaded there, the PPE, the cleaning supplies, those are things that were approved back in May, and we've already asked for that money through the grant system. Water hog floor mats. So we've been using additional entrances for mask breaks as well as for entry into schools. And so we're looking for the water hog mats to protect the floors. We're looking for picnic tables, 8-foot picnic tables, $1,800 each, 12 at the high school, 12 at the middle school. The elementary school is looking for 9 and 3 at the Meadows. The picnic tables we used this past year between the high school and middle school were taken back by the town right before the holiday weekend. So maybe a week or two before the holiday weekend. Operable windows at the SAU office. A couple of years ago, we did all the windows on the Route 11A side of the building. We're looking to do the rest of the windows at the SAU, again, so that the windows work and move up and down and can be open for fresh air. Bubbler prod.
Do you need clarification, guys?
Audra has a question.
So I think this is money that we're getting regardless. So we were looking for ways to spend it, really.
We are looking for ways to spend it, certainly, but also if you go back to page 1, Audra, at the very top of that page, how will this prepare, prevent, and respond to COVID-19? That's the question that the Department of Education has posed to all school districts. And so everything that we propose to purchase, and when I write it into the grant management system, there has to be a connection to that question. So the things that we're proposing have to be connected to how are we preparing, preventing, and responding to COVID-19. So I should have led with that, and I apologize.
But I would just add, I think some of the stuff that related to the outdoor picnic tables and things like that, I think one of the things we heard is they're going to be incorporating some of the stuff that has come out of this year is that kids enjoy being outside more for classrooms and things like that. So I think there are legitimate ways that we're going to be kind of carrying some of the stuff even without masks and things moving forward, more outdoor activities. Is that fair?
I think that's definitely fair for lunches as well as for educational experiences outside. I think all 3 schools would look to continue to do some of that work. The bubblers are, these are changing out all of the bubblers throughout the district and having water bottle filling stations in all of those areas. Athletic supplies, this is benches. So purchasing more benches for athletic teams so that we can spread kids out on the sidelines more. Meadows grandstands, this is something that we would like to enhance down at the Meadows for some of the events that we have down there, whether it's football or lacrosse games. Again, the things that the summer athletic camps, those were things that you approved at the last meeting, and those have been written into the grant, and we finally did get those grant activities approved recently. Page 4, at the elementary school, we're looking for art room furniture, currently using some cafeteria to keep kids spread out. This would allow the tables to go back into the caf, but also maintaining an opportunity in the art room to spread kids out. In the first grade classrooms, we are looking to replace all desks and chairs in the first grade classrooms at the elementary school. And again, the summer enrichment activities, summer learning academies, those are things that were proposed at the last school board meeting and approved and have been approved in our grant now. Next page, page 5, at the middle school, the cafeteria tables, we're looking for 6 extra cafeteria tables, again, to allow for spreading out students and for additional students. We're looking for furniture to create a wellness classroom at the middle school. At the middle school, we're also looking to purchase 50 folding work tables. Currently, we're using those, I believe, from the high school at the middle school this year. Summer learning academies, those have been approved by the board as well as through the grant management system. At the high school, looking for BioRad lab equipment. This is to help, again, to spread students out in the labs of the science labs. Z-Space software, this is something that we have currently. We're looking to expand this. More machines allow for more spreading out of students. Media, furniture, tables, and chairs. This is in the library media space. Monitors, computer monitors as well for the media tables. In the library, tall chairs and tables for lunches. We do use that space for lunch now. We've used it in the past for lunches as well up in the library at the high school. The May expenses for senior fire, graduation, prom, those were approved and have been approved through the grant management system. Online learning software renewal, that's something that we use. That's the Edmentum that we've used this year. And we're looking for to add a 3-year subscription to that software as well. High school enrichment, that was included in this in last month's meeting. We're also looking for after-school tutoring at the high school for throughout the 21-22 school year, and staffing that with 2 tutors. That's the pay as well as the FICA and retirement. And then food service, we are looking to purchase more to-go packages if we have to do remote meals, and then additional carts at the elementary school to deliver food as well. And there is, has been decisions about eating in classrooms again for next year at the elementary school. So this would help to get food delivered to classrooms more expediently. It's a lot of information and happy to answer questions, and other people in this room can answer questions as well.
Just a couple quick questions, and again, not really that pertinent, but is the going rate for a staff at summer athletic camps really $32.79 an hour? It just seems really high for a summer camp. I mean, aren't those usually like college kids or, you know, I mean.
So those
again,
are.
I'm just asking the question.
Sure, those are members of our staff, and that's the curriculum.
Oh, is that for both?
It's the curriculum rate that we pay. So we pay that amount per person.
So it is $32.79 per person.
We pay that amount per person for a curriculum rate. So we use that rate when we pay staff members to provide, whether it's tutoring, curriculum, or in this case, an athletic camp.
Can I sign up for one of those? I'm just kidding.
How much do you know about volleyball?
Hey, listen, I played a lot of beach volleyball growing up. That was really it. And then the $1,800 picnic tables. I mean, I know this is essentially free money, but I mean, is that? I mean, these must be like pristine, like, you know, made of titanium.
No. They're, I believe they're metal. They're long, and they will withstand the elements for many years. So,
just wondering. I didn't realize that the going rate was $1,800.
Wood picnic table right now is around $700.
Well, I bought one a month and a half ago for $118 at Lowe's, 6-footer wood. Not as nice as these, but I'm just saying it just jumped out at me. That's all. That's all I got. I don't want to keep us here any longer.
You're hungry too?
Does anyone else have questions down there?
This end of the room is hungry.
I get that there's only a balance of 1827, so I don't want to poke too much, but I was curious. One thing that came to mind for me, just having gone to the middle school show this last weekend, was I imagine that those microphones that we've been using to put on multiple shows, they got a lot more wear and tear in this past season. And I was wondering if there was any consideration that was made at all into any of the theater equipment when we were making these lists. Just because I was curious of that. And then also that online software to buy tickets for seemed to work pretty slick. And it seemed like something else that was COVID related that allowed us to book tickets. That was something else that I was curious if we had considered to include, just because those, I would imagine we used more than we normally do of those microphones, and they got used a lot more because there were so many shows. So
Scott, you have something to say?
Okay. 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 I just wanted to make sure if there was, but all right.
So just as a side, this is ESSER 2 money. And the next thing I'm going to talk about is ESSER 3 money, which we have not even received yet. And that's going to be another $1.2 million. So we can definitely buy new microphones for, for the theater program. But there's going to be, again, there's going to be quite a bit more money coming that we're going to have to go through this exercise with again.
I would make note out loud that we had to borrow track hurdles from Belmont to host the state meet because it wasn't able to be hosted at another venue. So maybe consider.
So those are hurdles. Good things to know. Yeah, hurdles. Yep, absolutely.
Can windows be purchased?
Well, because we had to host.
We had to host.
Yeah. We had to host a meet that ordinarily would have, a bigger meet that would have ordinarily gotten hosted somewhere else. So we did need more hurdles than normal. So
can any of the meadow stuff be addressed with any of that, like windows that open and aren't falling apart?
In the air handling.
Do you want to talk to that?
Talk real loud. Grab the, yeah.
So because it's federal funds, is that working?
Got some nice. There you go. Check. You can just grab this. It goes up and down. Just squeeze it.
So because this is federal funds and the DOE has never really done building projects through a federal fund, they're enacting or using the enactment of the Davis-Bacon Act. So basically what that means is, well, we ran into this problem because we've got the cabinet storage at the elementary school. Cost of cabinetry has gone through the roof, right? Because we know the veneers and the glue. And so our budgeted amount was $12,000. The project's come in at 17. And so we thought we could put the 5 on the grant. The problem that we ran into is because when we went out to bid for the project, we didn't include the language for the Davis-Bacon. Now what the Davis-Bacon Act entails is the company or the vendor who's doing the work for us would have to agree to provide all this payroll documentation to say that their workers or laborers that are working on this particular project make a fair and basic wage. There's a whole form on the Department of Labor's website that tells you for each type of labor, be a mechanic or a carpenter or a office staff, they all have to meet a wage standard. So say the cabinet maker isn't making the wage standard, he would have to then be brought up to the new wage standard. And you'd have to get the company to agree to provide the documentation of that, which is a whole nother administrative fee that you know you're going to see in the end of your cost amounts, right? So he's making more money. They're going to charge you an administrative fee, and they have to be held to the whole act, which is 5 or 6 different forms that they have to fill out on a weekly basis. So it's kind of a huge process. We lost out because we'd already gone through the bidding process for the cabinets earlier on, and not realizing that all of this was going to come to fruition with COVID and the costs.
So we just have to provide that in whatever bid we publish.
Correct.
And that's what happens. It would go out to contractors saying that this is a,
yeah.
So they would bid them based on that. So
yeah. Based on knowing that would be the expectation.
But short answer is it will be a more expensive project,
exactly.
but it could potentially,
Covered.
it's doable.
It is doable. It is doable. But the next, and keep in mind too, that both of these grants, ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, right now ESSER 2 is going until September 2023. And ESSER 3 is going until 24. So we'll have some time to lay these projects out. We don't have to spend everything today. Not everything on that list may be approved by the DOE. This is just first steps. So when it gets rejected, we'll be back to say we found another idea. And this could go on for a few years. And that bottom number on the spreadsheet is going to change, because what if people don't participate in the after school programs that we budgeted for? So those numbers are going to change. And so your bottom end number is going to change, and you're going to shift money around for the next 3 years. So, yeah, I'm wicked excited.
But good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But point well taken though, as far as it is an option, I think.
Right. And the picnic tables match the picnic tables that we already have on site. So that was kind of the idea, is to kind of keep things the same as what we have, and they've lasted. So that was the end goal.
All right. I think we probably do.
So we will come back probably in August, I'll say, for the acceptance of the ESSER 3 money. So we'll have to do a public hearing like we did with the ESSER 2 money, and the board will have to approve to accept it. And then we'll work to put something together where we, some proposals as to how we would spend that money. Just for the board's information, the last day of school for teachers is June 22nd. That's a Tuesday. We will have a brief gathering here in the auditorium at 8 a.m. to close out the school year and also honor all of our retirees. I'd like to welcome or encourage board members to attend. Anybody would be welcome also to say a few words to the faculty or the staff if you'd like. We're also planning on having a cookout starting that afternoon or that morning at 11:30. And board members, if you can't make it in the morning, you can come. If you can't make it at 8 o'clock, if you can come at 11:30, certainly time to mingle with staff at that time as well. So
what was the date on that one again?
It's the 22nd of June. An open invitation for sure.
At 8 a.m.?
8 a.m. is the morning meeting. Yep. And then under facilities, Ken and Jake Ruggles. Jake is the nighttime lead custodian. They're working with the principals right now and really putting together our summer cleaning and programming, scheduling, and lots of work to be done there. So thanks, Ken and Jake, for doing that work. I guess I would just wonder about the cost of the items for the grant. Are we good to go forward with that, or are there things that we'd like to hold off on? And how should I handle the Gilmington? If you approve this, should I send it to those 2 Gilmington members as well as their superintendent, and then get kind of an okay through an email from them to expend rather than waiting until August? But
I think an email is fine to send to them, just as long as we're being transparent with them, because they did vote on the previous stuff too. Yeah. So I'm good with that piece of it.
Yeah, me too. I'm not necessarily even looking for their approval, but just to, hey, this is what we're doing.
Just be transparent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you need a motion?
Heck yeah.
Are we motioning each page or motioning the final amount?
Can we just do, oh, go ahead.
Okay. So I make a motion to approve the SR2 allocation of up to $554,264.43 with the caveat that presentation will be sent to Gilmington representatives for review as well.
So as presented.
As presented. Like I know
there you go.
Good
job. I'll second that, Nan. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right. Oh, I missed my. All right, is that it for yours?
That's it for me. Thank you.
All right. In the interest of time, I loved reading your well done presentation, Danielle. Do you have anything to add to it? All right.
Good answer.
All right. Thank you. Peter, same question. All right. Do you want to read into the microphone just so we can actually? All right. It's good.
All right. So Old Tree by Lily Sanborn. The line that really touched me was, I touch your bark and I imagine of the people who did the same long ago. Which I thought was quite good. So congratulations, Lily, and to
All right. Thank you. Thank you and congratulations, Lily. All right, business administrators report.
Yeah, it was a busy month. So I gave you guys a copy of the presentation that I gave to the town for the budget committee. Just kind of highlighting some of the things that we had in the budget that was spent this year, some of the struggles that we had with food service and the elementary plumbing repairs and revenues and where we ended up at the end of the year and kind of throwing out the estimated fund balance. They had rave reviews on administrators, school board, and everybody who participated in keeping kids in school in person. So it was a nice meeting. Fund balance retention. This is your annual vote to retain fund balance based on the article that was approved back in 2014. So the total for this year's amount is $496,677. It's your 2.5% of the prior year's net assessment. And that is retained out of fund balance for current year. So the number that I've given you, the $1.2 million is already reduced. That number's already reduced out of that. So 496,677 is the amount that we would like to retain for next year.
Does anyone want to make a motion?
On the back of that page, just for the board's understanding, there is kind of a information about what we're doing there as far as retaining that amount of money and why and how and what we can use it on as far as expenditures. So it is for emergency use only.
Correct. And the money ends up going back to fund balance for the next year. So it's kind of a revolving, it just lives with us for a year and in case anything is necessary.
Good question. So you put in the report here, projecting an estimated $900,000 to $1 million to be returned to the fund balance. Does that include or not include this two? So this isn't it. So we have about 1.5 left over.
If we didn't retain, we would be giving back additional, the 1 million plus another 496. Yes.
Plus the 496. Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And here's an example of why I appreciate having this here. In my past, we didn't have this. So the retention is great when you come into the beginning of cash flow. It's August, the town hasn't cut your check yet for your annual tax payment, but we've got a bond payment due the first of the month and they don't waiver. So you cut in $1 million check in hopes of having $1 million in the bank. This secures that you have that money there to make sure that you can fully cut a check that big. So not that you're using it, but it's in your bank account to help float in those tight situations where it's the ebb and flow of cash flow.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Now, and we've done this before, right? We did
Absolutely.
this. Okay, this isn't something
this is
new.
Not new. No, you voted on it, and I want to say voted on it every year since the inaction of it.
And I don't think, in my time here, we've never used it. We've never tapped into it. It's just been something that we have carried and then given back in the following year.
Right.
And I'll make note too, at the budget committee meeting, I think it was Kevin Hayes, the selectman, sort of complimented the district for actually having a fund balance given the year. But Amy also made note of the fact that something that we as a board have talked about, that her intention in the budget process this year is to have us, continue to work to have a smaller fund balance. So I appreciated her comment about that, but also thought it was worth noting that we did have a fund balance given the year we had.
Yeah, no, and I wasn't there, so I'm glad to hear that as well. Because I mean, to be carrying over $1 million every year, and I know I heard Chris say that last year. It seems like every year, if we're returning $1 million, well, why can't we just reduce the budget by $1 million, or send this $1 million back as a rebate to the taxpayers, so that we're not holding on to it? It's not accruing interest, right? We're not. It really is just sitting out there.
So it does live in our bank account. We do accrue interest. Unfortunately, we didn't accrue the interest we hoped we were going to accrue this year. The banks cut them in half.
Low.
Yeah, it was. So that's impacted my revenue by about $20,000. So what it ends up doing is, in the grand total of next year's tax amount, this gets taken right off the top. So the town they're reduced that much amount. So the fund balance reduces next year's tax amount.
Right. So. Okay. Yep. No, that all makes sense. So you're looking for a motion then to okay, I'll make the motion to approve the retainage of the full 2.5%, which is $496,677. That it?
That's it.
Boom.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That passes. All right.
Next is food service fund budget summary for their year. So far, as of June 1, actual revenue is about half of what we projected. This is due to low participation for the first, I'd say, 7 months of school. It wasn't until the last few months that we've had better participation to bring in those $45,000 to $50,000 claims. So claims were really down. The other piece of this is that they didn't have the a la carte items out there for sale because we were limiting kids on touching and putting things back. And also the social distancing, trying to keep kids out of the servery. So their revenues are down. As I keep moving forward, their expenditures are, well, he did well on budgeting for food. You still have payroll and all the expenses that go with that. So typically during this time of year, we're taking the benefits which live in the general fund. That's how they've been paid. They've been paid, our health insurance was paid out, our New Hampshire retirement was paid out all off of the 31 general fund. We would do a budget entry, or excuse me, a general fund expenditure entry and move the expense from the general fund over to food service. So that amount would have been $183,291.12. What I'm proposing is that the district hold on to that $183,291.12 within the current general fund balance, which is the numbers you've been seeing all along because I haven't moved it yet. And also give them an additional $12,000 so that they can retain at least a $36,000 fund balance for next year to start their year off. I'm sorry if that was confusing. I'm happy to go back over it again. So basically, I'd like to keep the payroll taxes where they're living right now, which is where they've been reported to you all year and in all the fund balance figures. That expense is living on the general fund. Typically, we move it to the food service fund. I'm asking to keep it where it is to support their fund balance. If I move it to the food service fund where it belongs, they will be negative. So they'll start the year off with zero money in the hole, which is kind of frowned upon by the DOE and the auditors. So I'm asking for, I think the best way to put this, because this is all estimated, right? So come to the end of the year, hopefully his expenses for June aren't any more than $10,000, that we retain the payroll expenses as a transfer into the general fund from food service to create no more of a fund balance than $37,000 on their books. And that right now would be retaining the $183 in payroll, which we already have, and then giving them a transfer of about $12,000 to keep it just under $37,000.
Ladies at the end, I'm just curious what you were talking about, just in case it's relevant to what we were.
Explaining that the food service can't have a negative balance. A lot of this Audra is new to her.
Okay.
So as we've been going through, I've been trying to help her understand why we would be doing a transfer over. Okay. So that's all.
All right, I just want to make sure we were all privy to it, if it was anything we needed to help understand.
I would always make you privy to anything.
I just wanted to make sure.
So is it two? Is it two motions? One for the 12 and one for the 183?
One to retain the payroll. Yep.
Okay.
183, 290, 112. That number is not going to change. That's what their next rest of June is going to cost us. And then the transfer to the fund balance to retain 37,000. I would just say that no more than a $37,000 fund balance, because that $12,000 number could go up or down $500. You know, not knowing how June is going to lay out for expenses.
Okay.
So I think if you read my bottom paragraph, it might help.
Okay. I'll motion to approve the retention of the payroll expenses and a transfer from the general fund to the food service fund to create a fund balance no more than $37,000.
Second. Any discussion? Please know we'll have a conversation about this at the budget committee again. This is always a complicated one.
Yeah, this is a tough one because we always show money coming in from them as profit and money going over to them to cover the expenses. So it's a wash. This year, there's not enough money to pull back to cover the expenses.
And I remember this conversation last year at this time too about the 37,000.
Yes, he did.
Karen?
Is there any more discussion at the last board meeting that the food people, that we might be offering free food lunches next year for some of the students? Has there been any, have you heard any more?
Yes, they will be. They will be offering free. It's called the Seamless Summer Operating Program. I don't think we've seen the waivers to sign up for it yet, but the way that the DOE is talking is yes, it's happening, it's coming.
So will we be in the same position next year where we have free food, so we won't have income from selling lunches?
Right, so we're kind of talking through some ideas of how do we negate this? It's harder at the smaller kid level, but the high school level, could we offer a buy-up meal where they're getting a grilled chicken salad that offers more than a claimable meal or something more appealing to them that we could charge $4 for instead of claiming for $3 with the state? There's so many things we're trying to work through as to how to increase revenue, but also offer a better product to warrant the more revenue. But then again, it's also a policy on how much we charge for a la carte items. So yeah, there's some ideas in the works.
I would really appreciate it if my child did not come home with 3 bags of chips at the end of the day. I'm just gonna put that out there.
Okay, and my last item is...
Did we vote to approve that? I think we had the motion, but we didn't actually vote.
Motion and second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes.
So during April vacation, Ken had some camera services done at the elementary school as a result of some of the backup issues that we've been having with the plumbing over there. We've already done 2 sections of pipe this year, and now a third is showing issues backing up into a repair that was done in 2016. So a lot of this pipe is, as you can guess, old rusty cast iron. In this two sections. You got a smaller section for 35 feet and then a larger section for 125 feet. In your package, there is floor plans so that you can see where we're talking about. It's the red dashes. The biggest run is to your upper right on classroom 634 going out to 631. This goes out to right out to outside the manhole. And then the smaller one is more to the inside. So they're estimating this is going to take about 3 days to do. We're looking for $23,900 to complete the work. What I've also included as a proposal, this is a budget journal entry so that we can move the money from other lines within the district so that it can't be spent on their expenses and can only be spent from the elementary school on this expense, plus covering the negative that we're in for the other repairs that we've already done. So this would bring that account to even Steven for the year ending, but give us enough money to cover these repairs for the third project that we've proposed. Ken's here if you'd like to hear more about what we're seeing as far as backup. It isn't as bad as the first two projects, but it's not going to get better. There are holes or pinholes that are showing signs that this could become a much bigger problem than just backing up. There is another section that needs to be cameraed, so we're going to be putting that into the 22-23 unless we have to do it sooner as an emergency in 21-22. But for another project down the road for a piece that is from the 1990s vintage, which we're hoping is PVC, but we're still going to have it cameraed just in case. It's cheaper than dealing with a headache down the road.
My only question is, did we get more than one estimate? Or is this because I'm not seeing that here?
Right. So we have in the past worked with other companies who don't do this lining process. This is a sole source situation where this company is the only one around that does the lining. I'm happy to reach out and see if we can get somebody from another area. Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but they came pretty recommended by all the plumbers that we've worked with as far as the company that can do this for us.
I'm not just trying to understand, normally, but if they're one of the only guys, you said recommended by other plumbers.
Yes.
I know Jeff Chadwick has done work for us, but he recommend these people too. Then I'm sold. I'm good. That's all I need to know. He's the one I trust. Yep, I'm good.
As far as the payment of this.
Yep. When I provided the fund balance breakdown, you'll see that I listed this as a project. So this was coming out of my numbers that gave you your final fund balance as well as the food service numbers too. So.
But I didn't finish.
Sorry.
Are we confident that that is a clean way of? I'm just trying to reconcile in my mind for.
Yep. So basically what I'm doing, let me get to the page, is so I am taking money out of, so you can see the two negatives at the top, the credit balances for both at the elementary school, right? The 26 accounts. $10,000 is what we're in the hole right now.
Yep.
And then the $23,900 is what I'm needing to go forward with this project. So I'm taking what I can out of contractor services, plumbing, heating, middle school, which is $1,926. I'm taking 47 account high school. There's $6,000 still left to be spent on their line. I'm taking that and spending it up at the elementary school. There's contractor services and maintenance at the middle school for $9,000. I'm taking that. There's utilities. So I didn't want to touch the gas accounts because we were going to refill the gas accounts. So who knows how much we're going to spend there, but electricity is pretty easy to say the last 2 months have been, and that's going to leave me with. So I could take 11,900 from the elementary school. I could take 4,000 out of the middle high school line, and I could take $1,700 out of materials for repairs to equipment from the elementary school.
And you're confident that those numbers, that's where you got them from?
Yep.
As far as the budget for the rest of the
year. Yeah, it did make things tight in some areas, and Ken was like, you're going to steal my money. But we're trying to keep this all within facilities, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to impact other areas of, I wouldn't want to take it out of the salary line. That would just look weird. I want to show what we've got left and have it be actuals. And by doing this, it puts it where we need it so that the expense comes from where it actually came from. I wouldn't get the bill and charge the expense to high school. It wasn't a high school expense. It was an elementary school expense. We just borrowed their money.
Thank you. Does anyone want to make a motion?
Well, I'm trying to get one.
You need a motion to approve the movement as well?
I need a motion to approve the journal entry if we're moving forward with doing the project.
So it could be a two-part motion, I guess.
I need one to do the other.
Yeah.
They're stalling. They don't want to do it.
You're so good at it.
All right. Motion to approve the funds transfer of $10,772.46 and the $23,900.
Yep. And if you want to reference for transaction number 62, budget journal entry number 62.
On budget entry journal number 62.
Thank you.
For a total cost of $34,672.46.
I second that motion.
Seconded by Audra. Any discussion? I was looking for where it said transaction number 62. Okay. Yep, but there it is. So, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes.
And then you need to actually have a motion to do the work. Two? Or no?
I guess it could have been all in one.
I guess, yeah, I thought that your motion was everything. Can we amend our motion to say that we would do the journal entry
to approve
the project, to pay for the project?
Or I can just make a second one.
All right, second motion.
It's cleaner. I make a motion to approve the estimated work.
$23,900
for the $23,900 for Eastern Pipe Services LLC.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
All right. Any public comment online?
Time for time. Put that on 10 o'clock in 5 minutes.
No, we're not going to make 10 o'clock. No, okay, so can I entertain a motion for non-public?
Motion to go into non-public pursuant to RSA 91-A, semicolon 3, Roman numeral 2, subject matter C.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Karen. All those in favor? Roll call.
Onus, yes.
Gandini, yes. All right.
Crop TV.